Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. After the main character dies, he wakes up inside of My Hero Academia with a template of Sosuke Aizen from Bleach. How will he react to All For One? How will he react to All Might? What is he gonna do inside of My Hero Academia with the template of Sosuke Aizen?
Yes, I said softly. And that is what makes him dangerous. The Nomu is brute force. Kurogiri is control. Together, they balance each other. His fists clenched tightly. Then All Might is fighting more than just the Nomu. I placed a hand gently on his shoulder, steadying him. And that is why we must remain steady here. Do not let fear shake you. That will only distract him. Midoriya's breath steadied, his shoulders lowering slightly. Right. Tsuyu croaked low, her voice thoughtful. Kuro, then our job is still the same. Don't interfere. Don't give them a reason to focus on us. Exactly, I said with a faint smile. You understand perfectly. Kurogiri's mist rippled faintly as he turned his gaze back toward the entrance, his voice low. More reinforcements will come. We should retreat while we still have time. Shigeriki's body twitched, his lips curling. No, not yet. Not until I see him bleed. Not until I see that calm face broken. His eyes darted toward me again, his fingers twitching eagerly. Midoriya stiffened, his voice breaking. He's looking at you again. I shook my head gently, my voice calm. Do not worry. He is too distracted by All Might's presence to act. Kurogiri will keep him focused on survival. Tsuyu blinked once, her tone soft. You sound so certain. I smiled faintly. Because I am. The Nomu slammed All Might into the ground again, the impact shaking the dome. But All Might roared, surging back to his feet, his fists driving into the beast's chest in a flurry of strikes. The creature staggered, its body steaming from the strain of constant regeneration. Kurogiri's mist swirled faintly. Tamura. If you linger too long, the plan fails. Already the Nomu is showing limits. Shigaraki snarled, his hand scratching at his neck. TCH. Fine. But not yet. Not until I get what I came for. His words carried enough for Midoriya to hear. He clenched his fists tightly, his breath sharp. They really planned this all just to kill All Might. Yes, I said softly. But their plan is flawed. Because they underestimated him. And they underestimated us. Tsuyu tilted her head slightly. Kuro. Us. I smiled faintly at her. Because we are still here. Still enduring. That alone weakens their certainty. Their eyes widened, their hearts steadied once more. And so we waited, calm amid the storm, as the symbol of peace battled against the monster, while its masters argued in the shadows. Chapter 25, The Villain's Impatience. The ground trembled again as All Might's fists slammed into the Nomu's chest. The beast roared, its body straining to heal even as the symbol of peace pressed harder and faster. Dust filled the air, fragments of rubble scattered across the floor, and the echoes of each clash rang through the dome. Midoriya's eyes followed every movement, his breath uneven. All Might, he's pushing it back. Tsuyu crouched low beside him, her eyes wide but steady. Kuro, the Nomu looks slower than before. I kept my voice calm, steadying them both. Yes. Its regeneration is being tested beyond its limit. Already you can see the signs: steam rising, movements faltering. All Might understands. He will not let up. Their shoulders eased slightly, a flicker of hope returning to their faces. But that hope faltered as a harsh voice cut through the air. TCH, useless. Why isn't it enough? We turned. Shigaraki stood with his body twitching, his lips curled in a frustrated snarl. His hand scratched violently at his neck, the sound raw and unsettling. His eyes darted between All Might and us, red with rage. Kurogiri's mist shifted beside him, his voice calm. Tamura. The Nomu is still performing its role. Remain patient. The outcome will tilt in our favor. Patient. Shigaraki snapped, his voice sharp. We came here to kill All Might. To show the world he's nothing. But he's still standing there. Still smiling like it's easy. And those brats. His gaze locked on us suddenly, his body twitching harder. Midoriya stiffened instantly, his breath catching. He's looking right at us. Tsuyu pressed lower, her voice low. Kuro. He's not listening to Kurogiri anymore. I placed a hand gently on Midoriya's shoulder, anchoring him. Do not panic. He thrives on your fear. Remain calm, and trust that I will not allow him near you. Midoriya looked up at me, his voice trembling. But if he comes. I smiled faintly. Then I will stop him. That is all you need to know. Shigaraki's lips peeled into a twisted grin. Yes. I'll start with them. Break their calm faces. Crush them first, then All Might. He stepped forward, his fingers twitching hungrily. Tamura, Kurogiri said sharply, his mist rippling. This is reckless. The Nomo was designed for All Might, not for distractions. But Shigaraki ignored him, his steps uneven but determined as he advanced toward us. Midoriya's voice cracked. He's coming this way. Yes, I said softly, my tone steady. But remember what I told you. Do not let fear control you. Look at me instead. He turned, his eyes wide, meeting mine. I smiled warmly at him, my voice calm and gentle. Breathe. That is all I ask of you now. His chest rose shakily, but he obeyed, his breath slowing. Tsuyu's gaze flicked between me and Shigaraki, her posture tense but steady. Shigaraki drew closer, his laugh low and unsteady. Ha, you think you're safe just because All Might is here? You think I can't touch you while he's busy? I straightened slowly, stepping forward just enough to place myself between him and the two behind me. My voice carried across the rubble, polite yet firm. If you wish to prove yourself, direct your malice where it belongs at All Might. These two are not your concern. His grin faltered into a twitching scowl. You talk like you know me. Like you can order me around. I am not ordering, I said softly, my tone warm. I am reminding. You came for All Might. Every second you spend glaring at children is another second wasted. For a moment, he froze, his body trembling, his breathing uneven. His fingers twitched inches from the stone he stepped upon. Midoriya whispered behind me, his voice low. You're not afraid of him at all. Without turning, I answered gently. Fear is useless here. Calm is the only shield we need. Shigaraki snarled suddenly, his voice raw. You think you're clever? You think if you talk all polite, it'll make me stop? He lunged forward, his hand stretching toward me. Midoriya gasped. Aizen. But my stance did not shift. As his hand reached forward, I released a faint veil of mist from my fingers just enough to cloud the air, blurring the space between us. Shigaraki's hand swiped at the fog, his eyes narrowing in confusion as he coughed faintly. What? I spoke calmly, my tone polite. My quirk. It confuses the senses. Those who step into the fog lose clarity. They cannot tell friend from foe. Behind me, Midoriya blinked, startled again by how easily the explanation left my lips, natural and without hesitation. Tsuyu croaked softly, her voice low. So that's why you said we were safe. Yes, I said warmly. Because he will hesitate. Shigaraki growled, his hand slicing through the mist again, but his steps faltered. His twitching grew more violent, his eyes darting wildly. "Tch, this is nothing. Tamura." Kurogiri's voice cut sharply across the battlefield, calm yet edged with urgency. "Withdraw. If you waste yourself now, the plan will fail entirely. Focus." Shigaraki's hand twitched at his side, his breathing heavy. He stared at me through the haze, his teeth clenched. "Fine," he spat finally, his voice thick with frustration. "But don't think this means you've won." His body jerked backward, retreating into Kurogiri's mist. The fog swirled, swallowing him back toward the edge of the plaza. Midoriya exhaled sharply, collapsing against the rubble. He stopped. Tsuyu's wide eyes blinked once, her throat bobbing. "Kuro. You really made him hesitate." I turned back toward them, my smile faint, my voice gentle. I did nothing more than remind him of his goal. Words are often stronger than any strike. Midoriya looked at me, his voice soft but filled with awe. "You're amazing, Aizen." I placed a hand gently on his shoulder, steady and calm. "No. I am simply your classmate. That is enough." His eyes shone, his fear replaced with something else, trust. The clash of All Might and Nomo roared again, pulling our attention back to the heart of the battle. All Might's strikes grew faster, heavier, his voice carrying across the dome. "I will not fall. I will not let you harm them." Midoriya clenched his fists tightly, his voice steadier now. He's going to win. I know it." Tsuyu croaked softly, her eyes narrowing. "Kuro. Because he never stops." "Yes," I said softly, my tone warm. "And neither should you. That is the lesson today." And so we remained, calm beneath the storm, as All Might fought on and Shigaraki fumed in the shadows, his patience wearing thin but his will denied. Chapter 26, The Symbol Strikes Back. The air was heavy with dust and the stench of cracked stone. Every corner of the plaza trembled beneath the constant blows exchanged between All Might and the Nomu. But now, something shifted. All Might's fists moved faster. His stance widened, his voice thundered louder, each strike slamming with the weight of determination. His speed had increased, his movements sharper, more precise. Midoriya's breath caught instantly. He's moving even faster now." Tsuyu crouched lower, her wide eyes following the blur of limbs. "Kuro. The Nomu, it can't keep up." I kept my gaze steady, my tone calm. "Yes. All Might understands. Strength alone cannot defeat regeneration. But if he strikes faster than the body can repair, then the damage will accumulate. That is how you break a creature designed never to fall." Their eyes widened at my explanation, their fear slowly shifting into awe. The Nomo roared, swinging a massive fist toward All Might's head. But the symbol of peace ducked low, his fist slamming into the beast's ribs with enough force to crack the tiles beneath its feet. Before the Nomo could recover, another punch drove into its chest, then another, each one faster than the last. The creature staggered backward, its flesh tearing, its chest caving under the relentless barrage. Steam rose from its body as it struggled to regenerate quickly enough. Midoriya's voice trembled with excitement. He's not giving it a chance to heal." "Yes," I said softly, my tone warm. "That is the brilliance of his counterattack. Do not give the enemy space to recover. Press until their weakness is revealed." Tsuyu croaked low, her eyes narrowing. "Kuro. That's what makes him the symbol of peace." I smiled faintly. "Indeed. Because when he decides to stand, no one can move him." All Might's fists blurred, the sound of each impact echoing across the dome like rolling thunder. The Nomu's body shook violently, its chest buckling beneath the storm of blows. Finally, All Might roared, his voice booming across the battlefield. Carolina! Smash! His fist drove upward into the Nomu's chin, lifting the monstrous body clean off the ground. The force carried it into the air, its arms flailing as dust exploded around them. Midoriya gasped, his eyes wide. He launched it. Tsuyu's throat bobbed as she croaked softly. The Nomu's body, it can't keep up anymore. I nodded slightly, my tone calm. Yes. The balance has shifted. The Nomu was designed for brute force and recovery, but against overwhelming speed, it falters. All Might knows this well. Their bodies trembled, but now with exhilaration rather than fear. The Nomu crashed back into the ground, its body shattering stone as it landed. For a brief moment, its limbs twitched weakly, its chest rising and falling in broken rhythm. But then its flesh began to knit again, bones snapping back into place, muscles reforming. Steam poured from its wounds as regeneration fought desperately to catch up. Midoriya clenched his fists, his eyes wide. It's still healing. Yes, I said softly, but slower now. The strain is showing. Even regeneration has a cost. Tsuyu blinked once, her gaze sharp. Kuro. That means All Might really can win. I smiled faintly at her. Exactly. That is why he has not faltered once. Because he knows he can. Shigaraki twitched violently in the distance, his voice sharp with frustration. No, 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 no. That's not how this is supposed to go. He's supposed to fall. Kurogiri's mist rippled beside him, his voice calm. The Nomu is still fighting, Tamura. But yes, All Might has shifted the pace. We must remain cautious. Shigaraki's hands twitched violently, his nails digging into his neck. His gaze flicked toward us briefly before snapping back to the battle. Why does he always smile? Why won't he just break already? Midoriya stiffened at the words, his breath sharp. Because that's who he is. I glanced at him, my voice warm. Very good, Midoriya. You already understand. That smile is not for himself, it is for everyone watching. It tells them there is still hope. His eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of fear this time. They were tears of pride. All Might advanced again, his fists striking faster and faster. The Nomu staggered backward under the relentless pressure, its body failing to heal as quickly as before. Detroit. Smash. The punch slammed into the Nomu's torso, sending it skidding across the cracked tiles. Dust rose in thick clouds, obscuring the battlefield for a moment. Midoriya shielded his face with his arms, coughing. I can't even see through the dust. Tsuyu's eyes blinked rapidly, adjusting to the haze. Kuro. But we can still hear him. Yes, I said softly, my tone steady. Listen. His voice is never drowned out, no matter the storm. And then, through the dust, All Might's booming voice rang clear. I am here. The words filled the dome, silencing even the roar of the Nomu for a moment. Midoriya's shoulders trembled, his voice breaking with awe. That's why he's the greatest. I placed a hand gently on his shoulder, my voice calm and warm. Yes. And one day, you must carry that spirit forward as well. He looked at me, his eyes wide, his lips trembling. I will. The dust cleared slowly, revealing the Nomu once more. Its body steamed violently, its chest heaving as it tried to keep pace with the endless strikes. But All Might stood tall before it, unshaken, his fists clenched, his eyes blazing. Tsuyu croaked softly, her voice low but firm. He's not slowing down at all. No, I said softly. Because he cannot afford to. He knows every second matters. He knows his students are watching. Their gazes turned to me, their fear tempered into determination. And so we watched together, as the symbol of peace struck back with all his might, each blow carrying not only strength, but certainty, the certainty that this battle would not end in despair. Chapter 27, A Runner for Hope. The plaza shook again as All Might's fist crashed into the Nomu's body, the echo rolling through the dome like distant thunder. Dust rose, rubble shifted, and the air trembled with the force of the clash. But for a moment, my mind drifted outward, beyond the shattered walls of the USJ. One of us had already escaped. Tenya Ida. He was not here to see All Might's strikes, nor to hear Shigeriki's frustrated screams. He was racing across campus, carrying with him the only chance for reinforcement. Outside the USJ. Ida's legs burned with every stride, his calves screaming from the strain. His engines roared at his calves, propelling him forward across the pavement as the massive dome shrank behind him. Faster, he urged himself aloud, his breath harsh and ragged. There's no time. He could still see it in his mind, the villains swarming inside, the mist closing in, the look of calm assurance I had given him before he left. It had been enough. He had fled without hesitation, because someone had to. His heart hammered in his chest, not from fear of failure, but from the weight of responsibility. If I stop now, if I slow down even for a second, everyone inside will suffer for it. His engines roared again, blue flames sparking as his speed increased. The wind whipped against his face, his glasses trembling with each step. Ahead, the main building of UA loomed larger. Teachers were there. Heroes. Reinforcements that could turn the tide. I will not stop, he cried out, his voice breaking from the strain. Back in the USJ. Midoriya crouched low beside me, his hands clenched tightly together. Ida, he'll make it, won't he? Yes, I said softly, my voice calm. He is running with everything he has. That kind of resolve does not falter. Tsuyu's throat bobbed as she croaked low. Kuro. He's fast, but it's still far to the main building. I smiled faintly, reassuring. That is true. But distance is nothing compared to determination. He will not stop until the message is delivered. Midoriya's breathing steadied slightly, his eyes flicking back to the battle. Then we just have to hold on until help comes. Precisely, I said warmly. That is our role. Trust in him, as he trusts in us to endure. Outside the USJ. Ida's legs screamed with pain, but he pressed forward. His lungs burned, his engines sputtered faintly from overuse, but he refused to slow. The thought of his classmates, their fear, their struggles spurred him on. He remembered Midoriya's eyes, Tsuyu's steady voice, and my calm assurance. Each memory pushed him forward another step, another meter. Finally, the towering structure of UA loomed directly ahead. His engines roared again, one last burst of speed carrying him across the courtyard. The doors slid open as he burst through, his voice carrying through the halls. Teachers. Emergency at the USJ. Back in the USJ. Even though we could not see him anymore, I knew. The message had reached its mark. Help was already on its way. Midoriya's fists trembled as he looked at me, his eyes wide with desperate hope. Do you think the teachers will come soon? Yes, I said softly, my smile calm. Even now, they are moving. We must simply endure until they arrive. Tsuyu croaked low, her voice thoughtful. Kuro. That means we've already done part of our job. We bought enough time. I nodded gently. Exactly. Do not underestimate what you have accomplished. Every second you endure here makes victory more certain. Their shoulders eased slightly, the weight of fear shifting into something steadier. On the battlefield, the Nomo roared again, its chest steaming as All Might's strikes rained down faster than before. Each impact forced the monster backward, its body straining, its regeneration lagging. Shigaraki snarled in frustration, his hands twitching violently. No, no. This isn't right. He was supposed to die here. Kurogiri's mist rippled beside him, calm and steady. Tamura. Reinforcements will arrive soon. We must prepare to retreat. Midoriya's eyes widened at the words, his voice catching. They're planning to leave. Yes, I said softly, my tone warm. Because they already know they cannot win. That is what you are seeing now. Their defeat. Tsuyu blinked once, her gaze steady. Kuro. Then we just have to wait. All Might will finish this. I smiled faintly. Precisely. And we will remain here, safe. Minutes stretched, every strike of All Might's fists shaking the dome. Dust swirled, stone cracked, and steam poured from the Nomu's battered body. But still, the symbol of peace did not falter. Midoriya watched with wide eyes, tears brimming, his fists clenched tightly. He's going to do it. He's going to win. I placed a hand gently on his shoulder, my voice calm and warm. Yes. Believe in him. That belief is what strengthens him as well. Tsuyu croaked softly, her eyes fixed on the battlefield. Kuro. And Ida will bring the others soon. We just have to hold on. Yes, I said softly. And we will. And so we waited, calm amid chaos, as our friend carried hope outside the dome and our teacher stood tall against despair within it. Chapter 28, The Villain's Desperation. The dome trembled again as All Might's fist crashed into the Nomu's torso, the force echoing across the plaza like a drumbeat. Dust scattered into the air, fragments of stone breaking loose from the shattered tiles. The Nomu's body heaved, steam pouring from its chest as regeneration fought to keep pace with the endless barrage. Midoriya's eyes widened, his voice trembling but filled with awe. All Might, he's really doing it. The Nomu, it's slowing down. Tsuyu crouched low, her wide eyes locked on the clash. Kuro. It's not healing fast enough anymore. I kept my tone calm and steady. Yes. He has broken its rhythm. That is what happens when you face relentless will. Their fear steadied, replaced by growing trust. But even as they watched All Might push harder, danger stirred elsewhere. Shigaraki stood with his body twitching violently, his hand scratching against his neck until the skin reddened. His red eyes darted wildly between All Might and us, his breathing ragged. This isn't how it's supposed to go, he muttered, his voice low and harsh. He was supposed to fall here. To break. But he's still smiling. He's still standing in front of them like nothing can touch him. Kurogiri's mist rippled beside him, calm but firm. Tamura. The Nomu is faltering. If we linger, reinforcements will arrive. We must retreat. But Shigaraki's lips twisted into a sharp grin, his twitching worsening. No. No, not yet. If I can't break All Might, I'll break them. I'll make him watch his students crumble. Midoriya stiffened immediately, his breath catching. He's looking this way again. Tsuyu pressed lower, her throat bobbing. Kuro. He's going to move. I raised a hand gently, steadying them both. Do not fear. He will not reach you. Stay close, and trust me. Their wide eyes met mine, steadied by the calm in my tone. Shigaraki's laugh was uneven, his body twitching with each step as he advanced. Yes. I'll start with them. That will wipe the smile off his face. That will prove he's nothing. Tamura. Kurogiri's voice was sharper now, his mist stretching to block him. This is reckless. You risk everything. But Shigaraki shoved past the fog, his fingers outstretched, twitching hungrily. Shut up! This will end on my terms. Midoriya gasped, his voice breaking. He's coming straight for us. I stepped forward calmly, my expression unchanged. My voice carried across the rubble, polite and steady. You will not touch them. His eyes widened briefly, then narrowed into a snarl. You again. Always talking so calm, like you're above me. I am not above you, I replied softly. But I will not allow you to harm my classmates. That is all. He lunged, his hand reaching forward, fingers twitching with the promise of decay. Behind me, Midoriya cried out, his voice desperate. Aizen! But I raised my hand smoothly, releasing a controlled wave of fog into the air. It spread quickly, curling around Shigaraki's approach, cloaking the space between us in thick haze. He staggered, his eyes narrowing as he coughed faintly. This damn fog again! I kept my tone calm. Yes. My quirk disorients those who enter it. You will find it harder to focus, harder to reach what you desire. Tsuyu's wide eyes blinked once. Kuro. That's why you stayed so calm. You knew he couldn't cut through it. I smiled faintly at her. Exactly. There is no need for panic when you already know the outcome. Shigaraki swiped through the fog again, his voice ragged with frustration. TCH, you think this mist can stop me? It does not need to stop you, I said softly. It only needs to delay you. And even that is enough. He snarled, his hands twitching violently as he stumbled back. His gaze darted wildly through the haze, his voice cracking. You think you're clever, hiding behind that calm voice. But I'll. Tamura. Kurogiri's voice cut sharply across the battlefield, his tone calm but commanding. Enough. Reinforcements will arrive soon. If you waste yourself now, the plan fails entirely. Shigaraki froze, his breath ragged, his twitching worse than ever. His red eyes glared through the fog, locked on me. Fine, he spat finally, his voice sharp with hatred. But next time, you won't hide behind words and mist. He retreated into Kurogiri's haze, the fog swallowing him once more as his body jerked with frustration. Midoriya exhaled sharply, collapsing against the rubble. He stopped, again. Tsuyu croaked low, her voice steady but quieter. Kuro. You really made him hesitate. I turned back toward them, my smile calm and faint. He stopped because he was reminded of his weakness. Anger blinds him. Patience saves him. And he has none. Midoriya's voice trembled with awe. You talk to him like you're not even afraid. I placed a hand gently on his shoulder, my voice warm. Because fear changes nothing. Calm words and steady resolve are far more powerful. His eyes shone, his fear replaced by trust. You're amazing, Aizen. I shook my head lightly. No. I am only your classmate. Remember that. The battle raged on, All Might's strikes echoing across the dome as the Nomua faltered further. Each blow landed faster, harder, pressing the monster back as its regeneration lagged. Midoriya's fists clenched tightly, his voice filled with conviction. He's going to win. I know it. Tsuyu croaked softly, her eyes fixed on the battlefield. Kuro. Because he never stops. Yes, I said softly, my voice warm. And that is why you must never stop either. This is the lesson he shows us all. And so we remained steady, even as Shigaraki fumed in the shadows, denied again, his desperation growing. Chapter 29, Discord Among Villains. The sound of fists colliding rang like thunder through the shattered dome. All Might's blows landed again and again, his speed overwhelming, his strength unrelenting. Each strike forced the Nomua backward, its chest caving, its limbs bending unnaturally before they snapped back in strained regeneration. Midoriya leaned forward, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles whitened. He's pushing it back even more. Tsuyu crouched low beside him, her eyes wide but steady. Kuro. The Nomu's not healing fast enough anymore. It looks slower. I let my voice remain calm and warm, steadying them both. Yes. Every strike forces it further into exhaustion. Its design was to outlast him. But All Might understands. He will not allow it time to breathe. Their shoulders eased slightly, trust building where fear once lived. But even as the tide of the battle turned, danger simmered elsewhere. Shigaraki stood a few meters away, his body twitching violently, his fingers clawing at his neck until red streaks appeared. His red eyes darted between the battlefield and us, his lips pulled into a trembling scowl. This isn't how it's supposed to go," he muttered harshly, his voice raw with frustration. The Nomo was supposed to crush him. To rip that smile off his face. But he's still standing. Still mocking us with every punch. Kurogiri's mist stirred beside him, calm as ever. Tamura. The Nomo has not yet fallen. Patience. The creature was designed for this exact battle. Shigaraki's body jerked, his hand scratching harder at his neck. Patience. You keep saying patience while he humiliates us. While those brats stand there like they're untouchable. His voice cracked, carrying across the rubble. Several of my classmates flinched at the volume, but I kept my expression unchanged. Midoriya pressed closer to me, his eyes wide. He's losing it. Yes, I said softly, my tone steady. Because he cannot control his frustration. That makes him dangerous, but also predictable. Tsuyu blinked once, her voice low. Kuro. Predictable. I nodded faintly. Yes. The more he loses control, the easier it is to see his next move. That is his weakness. Their breath steadied, reassured by the certainty in my voice. Shigaraki's hands twitched violently, his nails digging into his skin. His gaze snapped toward Kurogiri, his voice rising. And you? Always telling me to wait. Always holding me back. If you'd let me act sooner, they'd already be dead. Kurogiri's mist rippled faintly, his tone measured but firmer now. Tamura. Recklessness achieves nothing. If you throw yourself at them without purpose, you jeopardize the mission. That is not strategy. That is failure. Shigaraki snarled, his body trembling, his lips curling into a sharp grin that did not reach his eyes. Failure? You think I don't see what's happening? He's winning. He's laughing at us while he smashes our weapon apart piece by piece. And you still tell me to wait. His voice cracked again, filled with a frustration that bordered on desperation. Midoriya's fists clenched tighter, his voice barely a whisper. He's yelling at his own partner. Yes, I said softly. Because even allies fracture when their goals are clouded by anger. That is why control is so important. Without it, you cannot lead. Tsuyu croaked low, thoughtful. Kuro. Then, he's not really their leader. I smiled faintly at her. No. He is only the loudest voice. That is very different from leadership. Shigaraki's hands twitched faster, his entire body shaking with rage. I should tear through them right now. I should make him watch as they crumble. That would wipe that smug smile off his face. Kurogiri's mist swirled wider, firm now, his tone calm but carrying weight. Tamura. Enough. If you continue like this, you will ruin everything. The plan is already at risk. Do not worsen it further. For a moment, Shigaraki froze, his body trembling violently. His red eyes glared through the mist, filled with hatred, confusion, and desperation. "You think you're in charge, don't you?" he hissed finally, his voice sharp and uneven. "You think just because you talk all calm and proper, you get to decide what happens?" Kurogiri's eyes glowed faintly within the haze, his tone unshaken. "I exist to serve the master's will. Not to indulge your tantrums. Remember that." Shigeriki's body jerked at the words, his breath sharp and uneven. For a moment, silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the thunder of All Might's fists against the Nomu. Then Shigeriki let out a low, trembling laugh. "Ha, fine. Fine. But don't think this means you've won. Next time, I'll act how I want." Kurogiri did not respond, his mist curling tighter around his form. Midoriya exhaled shakily, his eyes fixed on the two villains. They're fighting each other." "Yes," I said softly. "Because frustration has consumed him. He lashes out at friend and foe alike. That is why he will always fail." Tsuyu tilted her head slightly, her voice low. "Kuro. So all we have to do is endure. The longer it goes, the more unstable he becomes." I nodded faintly, smiling warmly at her. "Exactly. And you both are enduring very well." Their faces steadied, their fear tempered into something stronger, resolve. The ground trembled again as All Might drove his fist into the Nomu's chest, lifting the beast into the air before slamming it back down. Dust exploded across the plaza, the sound echoing like a drum. Midoriya clenched his fists tightly, his eyes wide with pride. He's going to finish this. I know he will." Tsuyu croaked softly, her eyes never leaving the battle. "Kuro. Because he never gives up." "Yes," I said softly, my tone calm and warm. "And that is the lesson for today. Not only from All Might, but from Ida, who ran, and from both of you, who endure here. Resolve carries further than any quirk." They both nodded firmly, their eyes clearer now, their breath steady. And so we watched, calm amid the chaos, as All Might pushed harder and Shigeriki fumed in the shadows, his frustration spilling over into cracks even his ally could not ignore. Chapter 30, Heroes at the Gate. The plaza shook again. Dust swirled in heavy clouds, stones cracked under pressure, and the echoes of All Might's strikes rolled through the dome. The Nomu staggered backward, its chest steaming, its regeneration faltering more with each blow. Midoriya leaned forward, fists clenched tight. His eyes shone with hope, but his body trembled from the strain of watching. He's doing it. He's really pushing the Nomu back. Tsuyu crouched beside him, her steady gaze fixed on the battlefield. "Kuro. It can't keep up anymore." I placed a hand lightly on Midoriya's shoulder, my voice calm and warm. "Yes. Every second brings us closer to victory. All Might is relentless, and the Nomu cannot endure forever." Their shoulders eased slightly, the fear in them tempered by certainty. And then, the sound of rushing footsteps echoed from the shattered entrance of the dome. Through the haze, figures appeared. Powerful presences, familiar uniforms, and steady voices cutting across the chaos. "Don't worry, children." A firm, commanding voice carried into the plaza. "Your teachers are here." It was Vlad King, his muscular frame moving quickly at the front, followed closely by Snipe with his long coat swaying and gun already raised. Beside them, ectoplasm split into multiple clones, spreading across the ground like a wave. Behind them, more followed, 13, battered but alive, supported by Recovery Girl. Even present Mick's booming shout cut through the dome. "Yeah! Looks like you villains are outta luck." The air shifted instantly. Where tension had ruled, hope swelled. Midoriya gasped, his voice breaking with relief. They made it." The teachers are here. Tsuyu croaked softly, her shoulders lowering. Kuro. Ida really did it. I smiled faintly, my voice warm. Yes. He ran with everything he had, and now you see the result. His resolve has brought them here. Their faces lit with pride, the strain of waiting lifted from them at last. Shigaraki froze, his twitching worsening as his red eyes darted toward the new arrivals. His voice cracked in disbelief. No, 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 no. They shouldn't be here yet. He wasn't supposed to make it. Kurogiri's mist rippled wide, his tone calm but edged. I warned you, Tomura. Every wasted moment made this outcome inevitable. Shigaraki's hands twitched violently, his voice sharp with rage. Shut up. Don't talk like you knew this would happen. This isn't how it's supposed to go. His outburst carried across the rubble, his instability on full display. Midoriya pressed closer to me, his voice low. He's falling apart. Yes, I said softly. Because his plans relied on fear and surprise. Both are gone now. When order returns, he has no strength to stand against it. Tsuyu blinked once, her tone thoughtful. Kuro. That means we're safe now. I nodded faintly. Yes. With our teachers here, the danger will pass quickly. You have endured well. All Might's booming voice carried across the plaza, strong and certain. You made it. Good work, young Ida. And to the rest of you, thank you for holding strong. Leave the rest to us. His strikes rained down harder, faster, the Nomu staggering under the renewed force of his fists. Vlad King barked orders, his voice crisp. Ectoplasm, contain the stragglers. Snipe, keep the ranged ones suppressed. Present Mike, disorient the small groups. The teachers moved like a tide, precise and overwhelming. Clones swarmed villains at the edges, gunfire cracked as non-lethal bullets pinned them down, and Present Mic's voice shattered the confidence of those trying to regroup. The villains faltered instantly. Shigaraki snarled, his voice sharp with fury. No, no, this is wrong. They weren't supposed to come. The Nomo was supposed to finish it before now. Kurogiri's mist curled around him, calm but firm. Tomura. We must retreat. If we remain, all will be lost. Shigaraki's nails dug into his neck until fresh red streaks appeared. His breath came sharp and uneven, his body twitching more violently than before. Midoriya whispered, his tone hushed. He can't accept it. I spoke gently, my tone warm and steady. No. Because he clings to a vision of victory that never existed. That is why he lashes out. Tsuyu croaked softly. Kuro. Then his plans already failed. Yes, I said softly, smiling faintly. And you are watching the moment he realizes it. The clash continued in the plaza. The Nomu staggered again under All Might's furious strikes. Every teacher advanced, their presence pressing the villains into corners. For the students, the arrival of reinforcements shifted everything. Fear loosened its hold. Shoulders lifted. Breath steadied. Relief settled in their expressions, a weight removed. Midoriya exhaled sharply, his voice trembling but brighter. We're really going to be okay. I placed a steady hand on his shoulder, smiling warmly. Yes, Midoriya. You are safe now. You have endured the worst. That is no small thing. Tsuyu nodded faintly, her gaze never leaving the battle. Kuro. And Ida, he really did save everyone. Yes, I said softly. His resolve carried him across the distance. And now you see the value of even one determined act. Their eyes shone with respect for their classmate, the lesson embedding itself deeper than any lecture could. Shigaraki let out a sharp, broken laugh, his body trembling with rage. Fine. Fine. Run back to your safety. Hide behind your teachers. This isn't over. Next time, I'll kill him for sure. Kurogiri's mist curled tighter around him, enveloping his form. We withdraw. The mission has failed. Shigeriki's glare swept across us one last time, his red eyes burning with frustration. And you, don't think you've beaten me. Next time, you'll all crumble. Midoriya stiffened, his breath sharp, but I rested my hand gently on his arm, my voice soft. Do not let his words linger. They are only the cries of a man who has already lost. Midoriya's gaze shifted to me, his breath steadying. You're right. He's just angry because he failed. I smiled faintly. Exactly. And that is no threat at all. As the villains began to retreat, swallowed by Kurogiri's mist, the teachers pressed forward, ensuring no stragglers remained. The danger was ending. And we, the students, had endured long enough to see reinforcements arrive. MHA, Reborn with Aizen Sosuke template. Chapter 31, The Final Sequence. The air inside the USJ Dome was filled with dust and the sharp scent of broken stone. The echoes of battle rolled again and again, shaking the floor beneath our feet. All Might and the Nomua clashed in the center of the plaza, their movements fast and violent, each impact rattling the fractured tiles. But now, something was different. All Might's speed had sharpened, his strikes landing one after another with almost no pause. His voice boomed with each declaration, his presence overwhelming everything else in the room. The Nomua stumbled backward under the barrage, its chest steaming heavily as its regeneration lagged behind the pace of the strikes. Its body twitched with every blow, unable to recover fast enough. Midoriya's eyes widened, his breath quick and uneven. He's going even faster. I can't even keep up with how many times he's hitting it. Tsuyu crouched lower, her eyes tracking the blur of limbs as best she could. Kuro. The Nomua can't catch its breath anymore. I kept my gaze steady, my tone calm. Yes. He has broken its rhythm completely. Each strike forces its body further past its limits. It will not be able to recover. Their eyes turned toward me, their fear tempered by my words. The ground shook again as All Might launched another devastating blow into the Nomua's chest, lifting the creature briefly off the ground before slamming it back into the cracked tiles. Dust exploded outward, clouding the air. Through the haze, All Might's booming voice rang out clearly. Your regeneration, your strength, none of it matters. Because I will not be stopped. Midoriya's body trembled with awe, tears brimming in his eyes. He's showing us what it means, to be the symbol of peace. I smiled faintly, resting a hand lightly on his shoulder. Yes. He fights not only for victory, but for the meaning behind that victory. That is why he does not falter. Tsuyu croaked low, her throat bobbing. Kuro. Then this is it. The last part. Indeed, I said softly. Now, watch closely. You will not see this lesson twice. The Nomua roared, swinging wildly at All Might with its massive arms. But each strike was met, parried, or dodged with speed the monster could not match. All Might's fists blurred, driving into the Nomua's body in rapid succession, its ribs cracking, its muscles tearing faster than they could repair. Steam poured from the beast's chest as it staggered backward, trapped beneath the storm. Midoriya gasped, his voice breaking. He's not letting it heal at all. Yes, I said calmly, my tone warm. That is the key. Do not give your opponent the space they need to recover. Relentless pressure leaves them no path to victory. Their eyes followed every motion, drawn deeper into the lesson unfolding before them. All Might's voice thundered across the plaza, carrying strength and certainty with every word. A hero, never gives up. A hero, never lets despair win. His fists slammed into the Nomu's torso again and again, each impact louder than the last. The ground cracked beneath them, tiles breaking apart as dust rose into the air. The Nomu's arms flailed, its movements weaker, slower. Its regeneration lagged visibly now, struggling to keep pace with the damage. Tsuyu blinked slowly, her voice soft but steady. Kuro. It can't win anymore. I nodded faintly, smiling calmly. Yes. It has already lost. All that remains is for him to deliver the conclusion. Shigaraki twitched violently in the distance, his voice sharp with frustration. No. No, this isn't right. The Nomu was supposed to win. He was supposed to fall here. Kurogiri's mist rippled faintly, his voice calm. The outcome is clear, Tamura. The Nomu cannot endure. We must retreat soon. Shigaraki's red eyes flared, his hands twitching, but he said nothing more. Midoriya glanced nervously toward them, his voice low. They're watching too. They know it's over. Yes, I said softly. And that is why they tremble. Because they see what you are seeing, the end of their plan. The dust settled slightly, revealing All Might standing tall, his muscles bulging with exertion, his fists clenched tightly. His eyes blazed with determination. The Nomu staggered forward, its chest heaving, steam pouring from its body. It raised its arms slowly, trying to prepare one last strike. But All Might was faster. United States, his voice boomed, shaking the very dome. Midoriya's eyes widened instantly, his breath catching. He's about to. Tsuyu's throat bobbed, her voice quiet. Kuro. This is the finish. I smiled faintly, my tone calm. Yes. Watch closely. This is what it means to end a battle. All Might's fist drove forward, slamming into the Nomu's chest with overwhelming force. The sound echoed across the plaza, louder than any blow before it. Of smash. The Nomu's body rocketed backward, the impact blasting it through the air as the dome trembled violently. It crashed into the far wall, the stone shattering as it embedded deep into the structure. The creature twitched weakly, its body steaming heavily, its regeneration too slow to repair the devastation. Silence fell for a brief moment, the echoes fading. Midoriya's tears spilled freely now, his voice breaking with pride. He won. All Might really won. Tsuyu croaked softly, her wide eyes fixed on the scene. Kuro. The symbol of peace really doesn't lose. I let my smile remain calm and warm. Yes. And now you understand why he is the symbol. Because when he decides to stand, nothing can force him to fall. Their shoulders lifted, their spirits steady, the fear of before replaced by pride. And in that moment, the battle's conclusion was written. Chapter 32, The Retreat of Failure. The plaza was still. Dust drifted through the air where All Might's finishing blow had landed, the sound of the Nomu's crash echoing faintly against the cracked walls. The monstrous creature lay embedded deep in the far structure, its limbs twitching weakly, its regeneration overwhelmed. For the first time since the attack began, the overwhelming noise of battle faded into silence. Midoriya's breath caught, his eyes wide with awe. He did it. All Might really did it. Tsuyu crouched low beside him, her throat bobbing as she croaked softly. Kuro. The Nomu, it's not getting up this time. I smiled faintly, my tone warm and steady. Yes. That was the end. He left it no space to recover. It is finished. Their shoulders eased, relief beginning to take hold. But across the battlefield, the villains stirred. Shigaraki's body twitched violently, his nails clawing at his neck until streaks of red appeared. His red eyes widened, his voice cracking as he screamed. No! No, this isn't how it's supposed to go. The Nomo was supposed to crush him. To tear him apart. His outburst carried across the shattered plaza, sharp and uneven. He stomped the ground, his hands twitching dangerously. Kurogiri's mist curled tightly beside him, his voice calm but firm. Tamura. Enough. The Nomu is defeated. Remaining here any longer is pointless. Reinforcements have already arrived. Shigaraki snarled, his lips twisting into a furious scowl. Shut up. Don't tell me to stop. I can still kill them. I can still. He lurched forward a step, his fingers twitching hungrily. But Kurogiri's mist expanded suddenly, curling around his form. No, the misty villain said, his voice low but sharp. If you move now, you will be captured. Do not mistake anger for strength. Midoriya tensed beside me, his voice hushed. He's not giving up. He still wants to fight. Yes, I said softly, my tone calm. Because he cannot accept defeat. But listen carefully, his ally already knows the truth. That is why he is forcing him to retreat. Tsuyu blinked once, her voice low. Kuro. So even villains have to know when they've lost. I nodded faintly, smiling warmly at her. Exactly. And it is often the calm ones who see that first. Their expressions steadied again, the lesson sinking into them even amid the chaos. The teachers pressed forward across the plaza. Vlad King's voice rang out, sharp with command. Ectoplasm, cover the exits. Snipe, keep them locked down. But Kurogiri's mist moved faster, expanding wide around Shigaraki and several of the remaining villains. The haze swallowed them quickly, their forms blurring into shadows within. Shigaraki's red eyes glared through the fog one last time, his voice sharp with hatred. Don't think this means you've won. Next time, I'll kill him for sure. And all of you brats will crumble with him. Midoriya flinched at the venom in his words, but I placed a steady hand on his arm, my tone calm and certain. Do not let his words trouble you. They are only the cries of a man who failed. His breath steadied, his eyes flicking toward me. You're right. He's just angry because he lost. Yes, I said softly. And anger does not change defeat into victory. The mist swirled tighter, pulling the villains inward. Shigaraki's voice carried one last time, sharp and uneven. This isn't over. None of you are safe. And then they were gone, swallowed by the haze. Only silence remained where they had stood. Midoriya exhaled sharply, his voice trembling with relief. They're gone. Tsuyu croaked softly, her eyes steady. Kuro. They couldn't stay once the teachers arrived. I smiled faintly, my voice calm. Yes. Because order had returned. Their chaos could not survive in its shadow. Their shoulders eased further, the weight of fear slipping from them. Across the plaza, All Might remained standing tall, his muscles straining, his chest heaving with effort. But his eyes remained strong, his presence unshaken in the view of the students. Midoriya's tears brimmed again, his voice soft but full of pride. He really protected us all the way through. Yes, I said warmly. That is what he promised. And that is why he did not fall. The teachers began to regroup, their movements efficient, their voices steady. Ectoplasm's clones secured the edges of the battlefield, while Vlad King surveyed the damage carefully. Snipe lowered his weapon, his hat tilting slightly. Damn! Looks like we missed the worst of it. Vlad King shook his head. We arrived in time. That's what matters. Their voices carried across the plaza, grounding the students in the safety of reinforcements. Midoriya and Tsuyu remained close to me, their eyes still fixed on the space where the villains had stood. They'll try again, Midoriya whispered, almost to himself. I kept my tone soft, my voice steady. Yes. Villains always try again. That is why heroes must always be ready. Today you saw that truth for yourself. His eyes turned toward me, steady now. Then we just have to be ready too. I smiled faintly. Exactly. The danger was gone. The villains had been forced to retreat, their plan in ruins. The students had endured, the teachers had arrived, and All Might still stood tall. Relief settled slowly across the plaza, piece by piece, as the silence deepened. And though the battle was finished, its lessons would remain. Chapter 33, The Weight of Victory. The echoes of battle still lingered in the air, though the villains were gone. Dust drifted gently from the fractured ceiling, settling across the broken tiles of the plaza. The Nomo lay embedded deep in the wall, its body limp, regeneration stalled beyond repair. The scattered fragments of stone around it marked the finality of its defeat. For the first time since the villains had arrived, the USJ dome was silent. Midoriya let out a long, trembling breath, his fists still clenched but no longer shaking. It's really over. Tsuyu crouched low, her gaze fixed on the fallen creature. Kuro. The Nomo won't be getting back up. I smiled faintly, my tone warm and steady. Yes. The danger has passed. You both have endured well. Their shoulders lowered as the weight of fear began to ease. Relief crept into their expressions, though exhaustion lingered beneath it. But as their gazes remained fixed on the Nomu, mine shifted to All Might. He stood tall in the center of the plaza, his chest heaving heavily, his fists clenched tight at his sides. His eyes still blazed with determination, but his breathing was uneven, his muscles twitching under the strain. The battle had taken more from him than he could show. I could see it clearly, the slight tremor in his stance, the way he kept his chest expanded, forcing his presence to remain unshaken. Midoriya's voice broke softly. All Might, he still looks so strong. I kept my tone calm, my smile faint. Yes. Because that is his duty. Even when he is exhausted, he must stand tall for those who look to him. That is what it means to be a symbol. Tsuyu blinked once, her throat bobbing. Kuro. So he can't let us see him falter. I nodded faintly. Exactly. And that is why he hides his strain. It is not weakness, it is responsibility. Their eyes steadied, the lesson clear. The teachers regrouped quickly across the plaza. Vlad King's voice carried sharp and commanding. Secure the area. Make sure no stragglers remain. Ectoplasm's clones spread wide, scanning every corner. Snipe lowered his weapon, his gaze sharp as he surveyed the students. Present Mix's booming voice carried reassurance. Yeah. Looks like the bad guys are gone. You're all safe now. The other students began to move hesitantly from where they had hidden, relief mixing with exhaustion in their faces. Some limped, others leaned on one another, but all were alive. Amid the activity, All Might swayed faintly where he stood. His chest rose and fell heavily, his eyes narrowing for the briefest moment. He caught himself before the motion could spread further, standing straighter again, but the tremor was there. I watched carefully, my gaze steady. Midoriya noticed it too. His eyes widened, his breath catching. All Might. I placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, my voice calm and steady. Do not worry. He is only tired. Battles like this take much from even the strongest of us. But he still stands, and that is enough. His eyes turned toward me, searching, then eased slightly. You're right. He's still standing. That means he's okay. Yes, I said softly. Trust in that. Tsuyu croaked low, her gaze steady on All Might. Kuro. He really gave everything. I smiled faintly at her. Yes. And because of that, you are safe. Recovery girl hurried forward, her small frame moving quickly despite her age. Her sharp eyes locked onto All Might, her voice brisk. You fool, pushing yourself this far. Her words were quiet, but I caught them. She reached up, her hand brushing his arm as she checked him quickly. All Might smiled faintly down at her, though his chest heaved with the effort. I could not allow them to fall. Not while I still had strength to stand. Her sigh was sharp, but she said nothing further, focusing instead on tending to nearby injured students. The teachers moved quickly to gather the classes together. Vlad King's firm voice called out. Class 1A, assemble here. We need to ensure everyone is accounted for. Students emerged from their zones, guided by the teachers. Mineta clung nervously to Shoji, Uraraka supported a limping Jiro, and Yaeorozo led a small group with calm direction. The sight of them alive and together eased the remaining tension in the air. Midoriya's breath shook as he watched them regroup. Everyone really made it. I smiled faintly, resting a hand on his arm. Yes. Because you all endured. That is the strength of standing together. Tsuyu's wide eyes softened, her voice low. Kuro. We were lucky. Perhaps, I said softly. But luck alone does not carry you this far. Resolve does. They both nodded, their shoulders straightening slightly. All Might shifted again in the center of the plaza, his chest heaving heavily now. Sweat rolled down his temple, his jaw tight as he forced himself to remain upright. Snipe's sharp eyes caught the motion. He adjusted his hat slightly, his voice low to Vlad King. He's strainin'. We need to get him outta here before the kids notice. Vlad King's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Agreed. They moved subtly, shifting their positions to form a quiet screen around him. But Midoriya's eyes, sharper than most, caught the faint tremor in All Might's hand as he clenched his fist. His breath hitched, his lips parting to speak. Before he could, I placed a steady hand on his shoulder, leaning slightly. My tone was soft, my words chosen with care. Remember what I told you. He is still standing. That is what matters now. You do not need to question more than that. Midoriya froze, his eyes wide, then lowered slightly. His breath steadied. You're right. He's still standing. That's enough. I smiled faintly, reassuring. Good. Trust him. That is what he wants from you. The teachers closed ranks subtly, guiding All Might toward the nearest exit while maintaining the image of strength. Midoriya and Tsuyu watched silently, their fear softened by my words. Around us, the other students gathered closer, the teachers counting heads, ensuring all were present. Relief mingled with exhaustion in every expression. But through it all, I kept my smile calm, my voice steady, ensuring those near me did not lose themselves to doubt. The symbol of peace had won. That was the truth that mattered now. And so we watched quietly as our teachers shielded him, carrying the weight of his hidden strain in silence. Chapter 34, The Gathering of Class 1A. The air inside the dome was still heavy with dust and the scent of scorched stone. Pieces of broken tile crunched underfoot as teachers moved quickly to secure the area, their sharp voices echoing through the vast chamber. All Might remained at the center, his posture tall, his presence unshaken to student eyes, though I could see the weight pressing against him. The teachers shielded him subtly, guiding him toward the edge of the plaza. But for now, the focus shifted to us. Class 1A. Vlad King's commanding voice cut through the silence. Assemble here at once. We need to confirm everyone's safety. His words carried the weight of discipline, but also reassurance. Students, scattered across the USJ's disaster zones, began to emerge, drawn by the strength of his tone. Uraraka supported Jiro, who leaned heavily against her, one arm draped across her shoulder. Shoji guided a trembling Mineta forward, his multiple arms shielding the smaller boy as he stumbled. Yaoyorozu led another group, her calm direction steady despite the dirt and exhaustion on her face. From the ruins of the fire zone, Kaminari and Cyril limped forward together, helping one another along. Ojiro emerged shortly after, his movements slower than usual but controlled. From the mountain zone, Kirishima appeared with Sato at his side, both battered but still standing. Tokoyami followed, dark shadow coiled tightly around him as if reluctant to release him. And from the water zone, Ashui, Midoriya, and I moved closer, steady in our steps though fatigue pressed against them. One by one, the class converged. Midoriya's voice broke softly as he looked around. Everyone's really here. Tsuyu croaked low, her tone gentle. Kuro. We all made it out. I smiled faintly at them both, my voice calm and warm. Yes. Despite everything, your class endured. That is not a small achievement. Their shoulders eased, relief shining in their eyes. Vlad King's sharp eyes scanned the group as they gathered. Count heads. Make sure no one's missing. Ectoplasm's clones assisted quickly, noting each name, calling out as the students assembled. Yaoyorozu, present. Kirishima, present. Tokoyami, present. Uraraka and Jiro, present. Ashui, Midoriya, Aizen, present. The roll continued, each name met with a faint nod of relief as the numbers matched. Finally, Vlad King's deep voice carried again. All accounted for. Good. That's what matters most. The tension eased further across the group. Shoulders lowered, breaths released, some students even sagged to the floor in exhaustion. Recovery Girl moved among them quickly, her sharp gaze sweeping over injuries. She touched sharply at bruises, burns, and cuts, pressing her lips thin as she tended to the most urgent cases first. Jiro winced as she worked on her side, but offered no complaint. Mineta whimpered softly as she examined his sprained wrist, but quieted quickly under her stern eyes. Uraraka exhaled softly, watching her work. We're really lucky she's here. Yes, I said gently, my tone warm. Her care ensures these wounds will not linger. You should all be grateful for her presence. The students nearby nodded, quiet but respectful, the truth sinking into them. As the group settled, Present Mic's booming voice echoed across the plaza. Yeah. Look at that, kids. You stood tall, you survived, and now you're safe. Give yourselves a cheer. Some students smiled faintly, others laughed weakly, the sound brief but easing the heaviness in the air. Midoriya glanced at me, his voice low. We really did endure. I smiled faintly, resting a hand lightly on his shoulder. Yes. And that endurance will carry you forward into the future. Remember how it feels, because you will need it again. His eyes steadied, his breath easing. I will. Tsuyu croaked softly, her gaze moving across the class. Kuro. Everyone's tired, but no one gave up. I nodded faintly. Exactly. That is what defines you as a class. Not power, but resolve. The teachers continued to survey the scene, ensuring order was restored. Vlad King barked another sharp command. Stay close together. We will escort you out as a group. Do not wander. His words were firm, protective. The students responded quickly, gathering tighter, leaning on one another where needed. Shoji's many arms supported Mineta, Yaoyorozu guided Uraraka and Jiro, and Kirishima helped Kaminari walk steadily. Each relied on the other, the bonds of classmates revealed in their quiet gestures. Midoriya watched them closely, his eyes softening. We really are a class. Yes, I said softly, my voice calm. And a class is stronger together than apart. Remember that. His lips curved faintly into a smile, tired but genuine. As the group moved slowly toward the dome's exit, the damage became clearer. The once pristine training ground was shattered, flooded waters still pooled in the lower zones, scorched stone marked the fire area, and the mountain zone lay fractured with deep cracks. The sight weighed heavily on the students, their expressions quiet as they absorbed it. Tsuyu croaked softly, her voice low. Kuro. The villains, they really came to destroy. Yes, I said gently. And that is why you were tested so harshly today. But you endured. And that is why you walk forward now. Their steps steadied, their shoulders straighter despite their exhaustion. The teachers formed a protective perimeter around the students as they moved, ensuring no further threats lurked in the shadows. Vlad King led at the front, Snipe scanned with his weapon at the ready, and Ectoplasm's clones fanned wide. In the middle, the class moved as one, fatigue pressing against them but relief carrying them forward. Midoriya whispered softly, almost to himself. We're really going home? I smiled faintly, my tone warm. Yes. And that is the reward for your endurance. You stood, and now you return safely. His shoulders eased further, the words settling deep into him. By the time they reached the dome's fractured entrance, the group moved more steadily. The open air beyond the USJ carried the scent of freedom, a stark contrast to the dust and stone behind them. The class paused briefly, gathering tightly as Vlad King counted once more, his sharp eyes scanning the group. All present, he confirmed finally, his voice carrying relief beneath its firmness. Good. We move together from here. The students exhaled softly, tension leaving them in waves. Midoriya's voice trembled faintly as he looked back once more at the shattered plaza. This really happened. I rested a hand lightly on his arm, my smile calm. Yes. And you endured it. That is what matters most. Do not dwell on fear when you carry proof of your strength. He blinked quickly, his breath steadying. You're right. Tsuyu croaked low, her wide eyes steady. Kuro. We survived as a class. Yes, I said warmly. Together. And so Class 1A, battered but whole, stood gathered under the watch of their teachers. Their ordeal had ended. The villains had failed. The symbol of peace had prevailed. And the students had endured long enough to walk forward again. The gathering was complete. Chapter 35, Lessons in Survival. The plaza was quieter now. The echoes of battle had faded, leaving only the faint groans of settling stone and the sharp voices of teachers directing order. But within the gathered circle of Class 1A, the mood had shifted. Relief, exhaustion, and the steady return of safety created a fragile calm. Recovery Girl moved among us with brisk steps, her cane tapping the broken tiles. Her sharp eyes scanned the students, noting each bruise, burn, and cut with practiced efficiency. Sit down if you're hurt, she ordered firmly, her small frame belying the authority in her tone. Don't waste time pretending you're fine. I'll see to you in order. Several students hesitated, then lowered themselves carefully to the ground. Jiro pressed a hand against her ribs as Eureka helped her sit. Kaminari slumped with a weak grin, though his wince betrayed the pain in his leg. Mineta whimpered softly as he cradled his sprained wrist. Recovery Girl's lips pressed thin as she crouched beside the nearest student. Honestly, first years or not, you lot managed to get yourselves quite the beating. She began her work quickly. A light kiss pressed to Jiro's side, her quirk activating. The faint glow of her ability spread across the injury, accelerating the natural healing. Jiro exhaled in relief, the pain easing visibly. But Recovery Girl's voice was sharp. You youngsters always think being a hero means charging forward. But what matters most is that you survive. Charging without sense only gets you hurt or worse, dead. Her words carried across the circle, firm and unwavering. Students lowered their gazes, the weight of her lesson settling heavily over them. Midoriya's fists clenched lightly at his sides. She's right. I placed a steady hand on his shoulder, my tone warm. Yes. Her words are not meant to scold, but to protect. Remember them well, Midoriya. He glanced at me, then nodded slowly, his eyes steadying. I will. Recovery Girl moved next to Kaminari, her quirk easing the strain in his leg. His grin faltered under her sharp gaze. Electricity or not, you need to learn control. Injuring yourself in battle leaves you helpless, and helplessness costs lives. You must never forget that. Kaminari laughed nervously, scratching the back of his head. Why yet? I get it. Her eyes narrowed. Do you? Because if you don't, you'll learn the hard way. And trust me, it's not a lesson you want repeated. Kaminari swallowed hard, his grin fading. Right. I leaned slightly toward Midoriya and Tsuyu, my tone soft. Her lessons are stern because the stakes are high. Heroes cannot afford recklessness. Every action must carry purpose. Tsuyu croaked low, her wide eyes steady. Kuro. She's trying to make sure we don't forget today. I nodded faintly. Yes. And she is right to do so. Mineta whimpered softly as Recovery Girl examined his wrist. Her voice was brisk. You panicked, didn't you? That's why this injury happened. Fear is natural, but you must learn to control it. Otherwise, you'll never stand in front of those who need saving. Mineta's eyes brimmed with tears. I didn't know what to do. Recovery Girl's voice softened slightly, though her gaze remained firm. Then learn. Because if you give up in fear, others will pay the price. Heroes do not have the luxury of surrender. Mineta lowered his gaze, silent but listening. Midoriya shifted uneasily, his voice low. She's right about him too. If he froze completely, it could have been worse. I spoke gently, reassuring. Yes. But even he endured enough to stand here now. That is proof he can learn. Do not forget that. Midoriya's eyes widened faintly, then softened. You're right. He's still here. Yes, I said warmly. And that means he still has the chance to grow. Recovery Girl straightened, her cane tapping the ground as she moved to the next group. Her voice carried across the gathered students. Listen carefully, all of you. You survived today, but not because of reckless charges or blind courage. You survived because you endured long enough for help to arrive. That is the truth of being a hero, knowing when to fight and when to last until reinforcements come. If you forget that, you will die young. The words hung heavily in the air. The students' eyes lowered, some biting their lips, others clenching their fists. But they listened. Midoriya whispered softly. Endure until help comes. I smiled faintly, resting a hand lightly on his arm. Yes. That lesson is not weakness, it is wisdom. Remember it well, Midoriya. It will keep you alive. His breath steadied, his shoulders easing as he nodded firmly. I'll remember. Tsuyu croaked softly, her tone calm. Kuro. That's why we were told to run when we couldn't win. I turned my smile gently to her. Exactly. Because survival ensures you can fight again. Sacrificing yourself without cause saves no one. Her eyes softened slightly, her understanding clear. Recovery Girl finished tending to Mineta and Kaminari, then moved to Eureka and Jiro again, checking her work carefully. Her stern eyes lifted once more, sweeping across the class. Being a hero is not about glory or victory or looking strong. It is about saving lives, including your own. If you fall recklessly, then no one remains to protect those who need it. Do not forget that lesson. The silence of the students was heavy but full of respect. They had heard her, and they would carry her words forward. I let my voice rise softly, carrying warmth and certainty. Do you all understand now? Today you faced chaos itself, and yet you survived. That is no small thing. But the lesson is clear: courage without wisdom is meaningless. Endurance and resolve are what allow you to stand here. Several students glanced toward me, their expressions thoughtful, some nodding faintly. The weight of Recovery Girl's words had settled deeply, and my reassurance pressed them further into their hearts. Midoriya exhaled softly, his gaze steady. You're right. Surviving, really is the most important part. Yes, I said warmly, my smile calm. And because you endured, tomorrow is still yours. The group remained gathered, Recovery Girl finishing her rounds, teachers ensuring order. Relief mingled with exhaustion, but the lessons of the day were already etched deeply into their hearts. The students of Class 1A had survived. And they had learned. Chapter 36, A Teacher's Endurance. The dome was quiet now, save for the occasional command from the teachers and the steady shuffle of feet as students leaned against one another. The fight was over. The villains had fled. The Nomo was beaten. But even in the calm, the weight of what had happened lingered heavily. Dust still clung to the air. Broken tiles covered the plaza like scars. Recovery Girl had finished tending to the most urgent wounds, her stern voice still echoing in the minds of the students. Survival first, recklessness never. Her lessons had been sharp, and necessary. But amid the circle of gathered students, one more voice remained unheard. On the far side of the plaza, propped weakly against the fractured ground, Aizen stirred. At first it was only a faint motion, his hand twitching weakly against the broken tiles. His swollen face turned slightly, one eye cracked open against the bruises. His breath rasped, but it was steady. Midoriya noticed first, his eyes widening. Aizawa-sensei. Tsuyu leaned forward slightly, her wide eyes fixed. Kuro. He's awake. I rose calmly to my feet, my gaze steady as I moved closer. Yes. Despite his injuries, his resolve does not permit him to rest. The students shifted, their attention turning to him, relief mixing with awe. Aizawa's voice was hoarse, his throat raw, but it carried clearly enough. You're all, still standing. His swollen eye narrowed faintly as he surveyed the group. He exhaled slowly, the sound rough, but his words deliberate. Good. You did as you were told. You survived. The students lowered their gazes, shame and pride mixing. His tone was not gentle, but neither was it cruel. It was truth. Midoriya's fists clenched at his sides. He really fought so much just to protect us. I spoke softly, my tone calm. Yes. And even in this state, his thoughts are of you, his students. That is the mark of a true teacher. Midoriya's breath steadied, his eyes softening. You're right. Recovery Girl moved quickly to Aizawa's side, her cane tapping the ground sharply. You shouldn't even be awake right now, you stubborn fool. Rest before you tear yourself apart further. Aizawa gave the faintest of grunts, his swollen lips twitching in what might have been a tired smirk. Can't rest yet. Not until they hear it from me. Recovery Girl sighed sharply, but she did not stop him. She only hovered close, ready to intervene. Aizawa's bruised face turned back toward the class, his voice raspy but unwavering. You saw it today. Villains don't care about your age. They don't care that you're students. They'll kill you if you let them. That's reality. The students stiffened, the words heavy but undeniable. Aizawa drew a shallow breath. But you didn't break. You endured long enough to survive. That's why you're here now. Remember that. Endurance matters more than reckless bravery. His voice trailed, but the weight of his words settled deeply. Yaoyorozu lowered her gaze, her voice quiet. He's right. If we'd lost ourselves to panic. Kirishima clenched his fists tightly, his voice strained. We wouldn't be here. Yurika's lips pressed together, her eyes watering faintly. We only made it because we held on. I smiled faintly, my voice soft but steady. And now you see. Your teacher fought until his body could endure no more, yet his thoughts were only of you. That is the example he wished to leave you with. The students looked toward me, their eyes thoughtful, some nodding faintly, others lowering their gazes in silent understanding. Midoriya stepped forward slightly, his voice trembling but full of resolve. Aizawa-sensei, we won't forget. We'll learn from this. I promise. Aizawa's swollen eye narrowed faintly, the rasp of his breath filling the pause. Then his voice came, faint but steady. Good. That's all I ask. Recovery girl tutted again, lowering herself beside him. Enough talking. You've said what you needed to say. Rest before you collapse entirely. This time, Aizawa did not argue. His swollen eye closed slowly, his head resting back against the broken tiles. His chest rose and fell in shallow but steady rhythm. The students exhaled softly as one, relief and respect mingling in the silence. Their teacher had spoken, even through pain and injury, and his words carried deeper than any scolding could. Tsuyu croaked softly, her voice low. Kuro. Even hurt like this, he still thought about us first. I turned my smile gently to her. Yes. Because that is the bond between teacher and student. He carries the weight so that you may carry yours. Her wide eyes softened, the truth settling in her heart. Midoriya's shoulders straightened, his voice firm. Then we have to live up to that. We can't waste what he fought for. I let my smile warm faintly. Precisely. That is the best way to honor him by becoming worthy of the protection he gave you. Midoriya's eyes shone with resolve as he nodded firmly. The silence stretched gently across the group, the heaviness of the moment balanced by the comfort of survival. Their teacher had spoken. They had endured. And now, with his words etched into them, they would carry the lesson forward. Chapter 37, Return Under Guard. The dust within the dome had settled, though the broken ground and shattered walls left no doubt of what had happened here. The villains had retreated. The Nomu lay silent, defeated and still. The battle was over. But the students of Class 1A remained weary, their breaths uneven, their faces marked with fatigue and strain. They had endured, but exhaustion weighed heavily on them all. The teachers, sharp and deliberate, began to prepare the next step. Form up, Vlad King commanded, his voice carrying clearly. We're moving out. Stay close together, no stragglers. We'll escort you back to the main building. Ectoplasm's clones spread wide across the edges of the group, their forms steady, their gazes sharp. Snipe positioned himself at the rear, his weapon ready. Present Mike stood near the center, his booming voice carrying reassurance. Don't worry, kids. You're safe now, and we'll keep it that way. The circle tightened around the students. Order replaced the chaos of battle. Midoriya exhaled shakily beside me, his shoulders tense. We're really going back. Tsuyu croaked softly, her wide eyes blinking slowly. Kuro. It feels strange, leaving like this after everything. I smiled faintly at them both, my voice warm and steady. It feels strange because you endured something beyond expectation. But now comes the most important part, returning safely together. That is how you honor what was given for you. Midoriya's breath steadied as he looked at me. You're right. Going back together, that's what matters now. Tsuyu nodded faintly, her voice calm. Kuro. Together. Their shoulders eased, the tension lessening in them. The group began to move. The students leaned on one another where needed, Uraraka kept Jiro steady, Shoji supported Mineta, and Yaoyorozu guided Kaminari with calm direction. Kirishima and Sato walked side by side, both weary but upright. Tokoyami followed with dark shadow curled tightly around him, its form dimmed but protective. Each step forward was measured, the teachers guarding the perimeter with silent vigilance. The wide, fractured dome gave way to the entrance path, the broken tiles crunching underfoot as the group advanced slowly but surely. As we moved, I let my voice rise softly to those nearest. Do you see? Even now, when strength is gone, you move forward together. That is the meaning of a class. Several students glanced toward me, their expressions tired but thoughtful. Yaoyorozu exhaled softly, her lips pressed together. You're right. We wouldn't be able to make it back without leaning on each other. Yes, I said gently. And there is no weakness in that. Dependence becomes strength when it binds you together. Kirishima's tired grin curved faintly. That's manly. We stuck together. I inclined my head slightly. Exactly. Their smiles, faint but genuine, eased the weight of fatigue as we walked. Midoriya's gaze lingered on the path ahead, his expression quiet. If All Might hadn't been here. I placed a steady hand on his shoulder, my smile calm. Then you still would have endured until help came. That is why you train to be ready to last as long as needed. Do not dwell on what-ifs. Trust in what you achieved. His breath steadied, his lips curving faintly. You're right. Tsuyu croaked softly, her voice low. Kuro. We lived through it. That's enough. I nodded warmly. Yes. That is more than enough. The teachers remained vigilant. Vlad King's eyes scanned sharply ahead, his large frame steady as a shield at the front. Snipe's gaze swept the rear constantly, his weapon poised for any sign of danger. Ectoplasm's clones flanked the group, their steps steady, their presence a wall of protection. Present Mike, though loud as ever, kept his tone light to maintain calm. Yeah. Keep it moving, kids. The worst is behind you now, and U.A.S still standing tall. Some students smiled faintly at his energy, though exhaustion dulled their reactions. Even so, his voice filled the air, easing the silence with reassurance. The path narrowed slightly as we neared the exit of the USJ. The broken doors had been forced open earlier, jagged edges of metal bent outward from the villain's initial breach. Light from outside spilled faintly through the opening, brighter than the dim interior of the dome. The sight of it drew quiet relief across the group. We're almost out, Uraraka whispered softly, her arm still around Jiro's shoulders. Yes, I said warmly, my voice calm. And once you step through, you will feel the weight lift further. The danger will be behind you. Her lips curved faintly, her eyes soft. Thank you. Jiro nodded weakly, though she said nothing. Midoriya's breath trembled slightly again, his eyes fixed on the light beyond the doorway. We're really going back to U.A. Yes, I said gently. That is your reward for surviving. You endured, and now you return. Remember this moment, it will remind you of what it means to last through hardship. His eyes softened, his expression steadier. I'll remember. Tsuyu croaked low, her wide eyes steady. Kuro. It feels different, leaving as a class like this. I inclined my head faintly. Because you faced danger together. That is what changes you. Do not forget this bond. Her lips curved faintly in a small nod. At the doorway, Vlad King raised a hand, halting the group briefly. His eyes scanned the exterior carefully, Ectoplasm's clones sweeping ahead to check the perimeter. Snipe kept his weapon steady, his sharp gaze unwavering. Only when the clones signaled clear did Vlad King lower his hand. Move out. Stay together. The group advanced slowly, stepping into the light of the exit. The air outside was cooler, fresher, carrying the open scent of freedom. The contrast to the heavy air of the dome was immediate, and several students exhaled audibly, their relief plain. Yaeorozu's shoulders lowered as she looked up at the sky. We're out. Kaminari let out a shaky laugh. Finally. Ojiro exhaled softly, his tail swaying faintly behind him. It feels lighter out here. I smiled faintly at them, my tone calm. Yes. Because the shadow of battle is behind you now. Carry this feeling with you, and remember what it took to reach it. Their expressions softened, thoughtful but eased. The teachers tightened the perimeter again as the group advanced toward the main path back to the school. Vlad King led firmly, Recovery Girl moved steadily beside him, and Present Mike kept his booming voice light and energetic. Snipe remained at the rear, silent but unwavering, his hat tilted slightly as he watched every angle. Ectoplasm's clones remained scattered, ensuring no threat drew near. The students walked together in the center, leaning on one another, their exhaustion real but their relief stronger. Midoriya looked around at his classmates, his eyes softening. We really made it back as a class. I rested a hand lightly on his arm, my smile calm. Yes. And that is a strength greater than any quirk, the strength of unity. Do not forget it. His gaze steadied, his nod firm. I won't. Tsuyu croaked softly, her tone low but clear. Kuro. Together. Yes, I said warmly. Together. The walk back was slow but certain, each step carrying the students closer to safety. And though exhaustion weighed on every shoulder, relief walked beside them as well. The villains had failed. The symbol of peace had prevailed. And Class 1A returned, battered but whole. Chapter 38, The Symbol Withdraws. The group moved carefully along the path that led from the shattered dome of the USJ back toward the main grounds of UA. Teachers surrounded the students in a tight perimeter, their gazes sharp, their steps deliberate. The chaos of battle had ended, but vigilance remained. The students leaned on one another, weary but still walking. Their voices were quiet now, relief and fatigue blending together. Every so often, one of them exhaled a shaky laugh, or muttered a soft word of reassurance to another. In the center of it all Might walked tall, his broad shoulders set, his stride steady to the eyes of the students. He still bore the image of the symbol of peace, the unshaken pillar of strength. But to me, the truth was clear. His breaths were uneven, hidden only by sheer control. His shoulders tensed at every exhale, his jaw clenched as he forced himself upright. I could see the tremor in his arm, the faint hitch in his step, the way sweat rolled steadily down his temple despite the cool air outside the dome. All Might was at his limit. The teachers knew it too. Vlad King's eyes flicked toward him more than once, his jaw tight. Snipe kept his distance at the rear, but his sharp gaze lingered longer than usual on their leader. Recovery Girl walked briskly, her frown etched deep as she kept close. Ectoplasm's clones adjusted subtly, moving to form a quiet screen whenever All Might's steps faltered. They knew what had to be done, protect the students not just from villains, but from the truth. Midoriya's eyes, sharp and searching, lingered on All Might as well. His lips parted faintly, a question on the edge of forming. I placed a steady hand on his shoulder before he could speak. My smile was calm, my tone warm. He still walks before you, Midoriya. That is all you need to trust. Worry less about what you see, and more about what it means that your symbol endured long enough to stand here now. Midoriya's breath caught, his gaze snapping to me. Slowly, he exhaled and nodded, his eyes softening. You're right. He's still standing. That's enough. Exactly, I said gently. Have faith in that, and allow him the dignity he has earned. Tsuyu croaked softly beside us, her white eyes lingering on All Might. Kuro. He really gave everything back there. Yes, I said warmly, inclining my head. And now he wishes for you to carry only the sight of his victory, not his strain. Honor that wish, and trust your teacher to guide him. Her gaze lowered slightly, thoughtful. Kuro. I understand. The teachers moved with quiet coordination. Vlad King's deep voice carried in a low command to the others, meant not for us but for them. Keep the students focused. We'll get him out of sight once we're back inside. Recovery girl huffed sharply, her tone brisk. If he collapses before then, I'll scold him until he never forgets. All Might's booming voice followed, though softer than usual, the strain faint beneath it. Ha! No need to worry about me. I am still here. The students straightened at his words, their eyes shining faintly with relief. His presence, even strained, was still enough to lift them. But to me, it was clear, his endurance was nearing its end. The path stretched on. The open air around us felt cooler, calmer than the heavy dome. The sight of U.A.'s distant buildings peeked faintly over the treeline, drawing quiet murmurs of relief from the students. Eureka whispered softly, supporting Jiro at her side. We're almost back. Kirishima exhaled heavily, his tired grin faint. Man, never thought I'd be so happy to see school buildings. Yaeorozu's lips curved faintly, though her eyes were weary. We'll be safe once we're back inside. I smiled gently, my tone calm and steady. Yes. The sight of home after danger always carries relief. Remember it well, it is the weight of survival. Their expressions eased further, their shoulders lowering slightly. But even as they looked forward, my gaze remained on All Might. His steps faltered again, almost imperceptibly. Vlad King's large frame shifted subtly forward, blocking the view for the students walking nearest. Ectoplasm's clones filled gaps smoothly, moving in time with All Might's motion. Recovery girl moved closer, her small frame at his side. Her voice was sharp, though quiet. You stubborn fool, you won't last much longer at this pace. All Might's booming laugh came, though thinner than before. Ho! A little fatigue is nothing to the symbol of peace. But even as he spoke, his chest heaved deeply, the strain visible only to those who knew where to look. Midoriya's brows furrowed faintly again, his sharp eyes catching the slightest tremor. I leaned closer, my voice soft, reassuring. Do not dwell on what you see. Instead, hold on to what he gave you, the certainty of his victory. That is the gift he wants you to carry forward. Midoriya froze for a moment, then slowly released the breath he had been holding. His gaze steadied, his lips pressing together. You're right. I'll remember that instead. I smiled faintly. Good. That is the trust he wishes from you. The trees gave way to open ground, the main buildings of UA now fully visible. The sight drew another wave of quiet relief from the students. Snipe's voice carried from the rear, low but firm. We're in the clear. No movement, no sign of pursuit. Vlad King's shoulders eased faintly, though his voice remained sharp. Good. Keep it tight until we're inside. The group advanced steadily, the perimeter unbroken, the students moving together in the center. All Might walked still, but each step drew more heavily from him. His endurance was nearly gone. At the edge of the main campus, as the gates came into view, Vlad King's sharp voice carried again. Move quickly now. Once we're inside, he'll be secure. Ectoplasm's clones began to close the formation tighter, shielding the symbol of peace from every angle. The students, weary but obedient, followed the motion without question. Midoriya glanced once more toward All Might, but I placed my hand firmly on his shoulder, guiding his gaze forward. My smile was calm, my tone warm. Look ahead, Midoriya. Safety lies before you. Trust your teachers to handle the rest. He hesitated, then nodded firmly, his eyes fixed forward. Yes. Tsuyu croaked softly, her voice low. Kuro. He's right. We should focus on getting back. I inclined my head gently. Precisely. The group crossed through the gates. The safety of U.A.'s grounds surrounded us, the atmosphere lighter, steadier. The students exhaled audibly, the relief in them finally loosening the last tension from their shoulders. At that moment, the teachers moved with precision. Recovery Girl at All Might's side, Vlad King leading, Ectoplasm's clones shifting as a screen, Snipe watching sharply from behind. Together, they guided the symbol of peace away from student eyes, discreetly and without announcement. To the class, All Might remained upright, his presence unshaken. But to us who knew, it was clear, his battle was done, and his strain demanded its price. I smiled faintly, turning back to the students nearest me. See? You are safe. That is the only truth you need now. Trust in that, and let the rest with your teachers. Their shoulders eased further, their eyes softening. Midoriya exhaled slowly, his voice quiet. We made it back. Yes, I said warmly. And because you endured, you will see tomorrow. Tsuyu's gaze moved across the group, her voice low. Kuro. We're all still together. I inclined my head gently. Together that is your strength. And with that, the symbol of peace was quietly withdrawn, his strain hidden, his image preserved. The students, none the wiser, carried only the memory of his victory. Chapter 39, The Principal's Arrival. The gates of UA closed firmly behind us, the sound carrying finality. Beyond them, the world still bore uncertainty. But here, within the walls of the academy, safety returned. The students exhaled heavily as one, the tension leaving them in uneven breaths. Shoulders lowered, steps slowed, the relief of reaching home sinking into them. Yet even within the walls, vigilance did not falter. Vlad King's sharp eyes scanned constantly, Snipe's weapon remained ready at his side, and Ectoplasm's clones held their formation until the final moment. Recovery Girl walked briskly near the front, her frown deep, her pace carrying no hesitation. All Might had already been guided away, shielded by his colleagues from student eyes. The symbol's image remained untouched in their minds. And then, from the main building ahead, Principal Nizu appeared. His small form moved briskly, his expression bright and welcoming, though his eyes glimmered with keen intelligence. Behind him, several members of the police force followed, their uniforms sharp, their steps disciplined. The campus was already tightening its security. Ah, there you are. Nizu's high, clear voice carried across the courtyard, cheerful despite the gravity of the moment. Our brave students, safe and sound. What a relief! The students paused at his words, some bowing faintly, others simply watching him with tired eyes. Nizu's gaze swept across them quickly, sharp and precise despite his friendly smile. He noted the injuries, the exhaustion, the faint tremors still lingering in their stances. His small paws clasped together lightly. I'm truly glad to see you all whole. It was a terrible ordeal, but you've endured admirably. Midoriya's breath trembled faintly at his words, his fists clenching lightly at his sides. He knows everything already. I placed a calm hand on his shoulder, my smile warm. Yes. And his words carry not only knowledge, but pride in your endurance. Accept them as the recognition you have earned. Midoriya blinked quickly, then nodded slowly, his shoulders easing. You're right. I should be proud too. Yes, I said gently. You should. Tsuyu croaked softly, her gaze fixed on Nizu. Kuro. He's not angry. No, I said warmly. Because he sees the truth, you did all that could be asked of you. He knows that survival itself was victory. Her wide eyes blinked once, the words settling into her. Kuro. I understand. The police officers spread around the courtyard, their sharp voices calling orders as they secured the area. Barricades were positioned at the gates, communications relayed through radios. The sound of organized efficiency filled the air. One officer approached Nizu, bowing his head slightly. Principal. The outer perimeter is secured. No sign of intruders. The press is already gathering at the main road. Nizu's bright tone remained steady, his smile unwavering. Very good. Keep the press contained there. The students don't need a crowd of flashing cameras in their faces right now. Yes, sir. The officer moved quickly to carry out his command. Nizu turned back to the class, his paws folding lightly behind him. Students of Class 1A, you have been through much today. I will not burden you with questions yet. You will have time to recover first. But know this: you did well. You survived something no student should have had to face, and you are here together. That is all that matters. The students lowered their gazes, some blinking back tears, others holding their expressions firm. His words reached them, simple and direct. Eureka's lips pressed together as she whispered softly. We really did do well. Kirishima clenched a fist, his tired grin faint but steady. Yeah, survived something insane. Yaeorozu exhaled softly, her voice quiet. He's right. What matters is that we're all still here. I smiled faintly at them, my voice calm. And you should let that truth sink deep. It will give you strength for the days ahead. Their expressions eased further, the relief settling into them. Vlad King's deep voice carried sharply across the group. Students, stay here in the courtyard until we give further instruction. Teachers will speak with the principal and police first. The class nodded, settling carefully into small groups across the courtyard. Some sat heavily on the stone benches, others lowered themselves to the ground, their exhaustion too heavy to resist. The teachers moved ahead, gathering with Nizu and the police near the steps of the main building. Their voices carried low, but their expressions were serious. Plans were already forming for what would follow. Midoriya's eyes lingered on the group of adults, his brows furrowing faintly. They're already planning what to do next. I smiled faintly, my tone steady. Of course. That is their duty, to shield you not only from harm, but from the burdens of responsibility too heavy for your shoulders. Trust them, and allow them to carry that weight. His lips parted slightly, then closed. Slowly, he nodded, his voice quiet. I'll trust them. Tsuyu croaked softly, her gaze thoughtful. Kuro. That's why they moved so fast. They want us to rest while they handle it. Yes, I said warmly. Because that is what teachers and leaders are for, to let you recover, so you may rise again when it is your turn. Her wide eyes softened faintly, her nod small but certain. The courtyard was calm now, save for the measured voices of the teachers and the sharp instructions of the police. The press outside the gates shouted distantly, but their words were muffled, kept away by the officers' careful control. The students leaned against one another, exhaustion pulling at them, but relief holding them steady. Shoji adjusted his arms to give Mineta a place to rest. Eureka kept Jiro supported at her side. Kirishima and Sato sat together, their tired grins faint but reassuring. Kaminari stretched his leg carefully, sighing as the ache eased. Each small gesture of care reinforced the bond of a class that had faced the unthinkable together. Nizu's voice carried once more across the courtyard, clear and cheerful. Rest easy for now, students. You are safe, and you are together. That is all that matters tonight. Tomorrow, we will begin to understand what happened, but for now simply breathe. The class exhaled softly as one, his words a final reassurance. Midoriya's shoulders lowered further, his eyes blinking rapidly. He really makes it feel like we're safe. I smiled faintly, my tone warm. Because you are. His presence carries certainty, just as your teachers did. Trust in that, and allow yourself to rest. Midoriya nodded firmly, his breath steadying. I will. Tsuyu croaked low, her wide eyes on Nizu. Kuro. He's small, but he feels strong. Yes, I said gently. Because true strength is not in appearance, but in presence. Remember that. Her lips curved faintly in understanding. And so, under the watch of the principal, the police, and their teachers, Class 1A rested in the safety of U.A.'s courtyard. The villains were gone. The symbol of peace had prevailed. And now, Principal Nizu had arrived to close the curtain on the day's ordeal. Chapter 40, Crossing the Threshold. The courtyard settled into calm, the police and teachers forming an invisible wall of protection around the students. The sound of distant reporters beyond the gates continued to echo faintly, but their words carried no weight here. Within these walls, the students were sheltered. Principal Nizu's sharp orders had already set the campus into lockdown. Patrols spread across the grounds, officers moved into position, and the teachers stood firmly in control. The chaos of the USJ attack was behind us, though its weight still lingered in every student's expression. At last, Vlad King's steady voice carried across the group. Students, we're moving inside now. Stay together. No straying, no stopping. The students rose carefully from the benches and ground where they had rested, their movements slow, their exhaustion plain. They leaned on one another as before, their bond steady even in weariness. And so, under the watchful eyes of teachers and police, we began the slow walk toward the main building. Midoriya's voice trembled faintly beside me. We're finally going back inside. I inclined my head slightly, my smile calm. Yes. You will step back into familiarity now. That will give you comfort, because safety is always clearest when it surrounds you. His breath steadied, his eyes softening. You're right. It feels so different, knowing we're almost back in our own halls. Yes, I said warmly. That difference is the reward for your endurance. Tsuyu croaked softly at my other side, her wide eyes blinking once. Kuro. It really feels like we're moving away from the danger now. I turned my smile to her. Because you are. Each step forward is a step further from fear, and closer to the strength of home. Her gaze lowered slightly, thoughtful. Kuro. I like that. The path stretched across the familiar school grounds, the main building rising steadily before us. Its tall structure, so often taken for granted, now seemed to the students like a fortress. The sight of it brought faint sighs of relief, whispered words of comfort passed between them. Eureka whispered softly to Jiro at her side. We're really back, it's right there. Jiro's lips pressed together, her tired eyes lifting faintly. I didn't think I'd be so happy just to see the school doors. Yaoyorozu exhaled quietly, her hands folded at her waist. It feels different now. Like it means more than before. I smiled faintly as I walked with them, my voice calm. Because it has become more than just a building. It is the shelter you return to. Remember that feeling, and let it remind you that survival always carries value. Their expressions softened, the words settling in quietly. The teachers remained steady in their positions. Vlad King and Ectoplasm's clones held the front. Present Mike walked loudly at the side, his voice booming though carrying reassurance. Yeah. Almost there, kids. Keep those heads up, we're back on our own turf now. Some of the students gave faint smiles at his energy, though their exhaustion dulled their reactions. Even so, his voice filled the air with a certain comfort. Snipe held the rear, his weapon ready, his hat tilting slightly as his gaze swept constantly behind. Recovery Girl moved briskly near the middle, her sharp eyes flicking between students for any signs of faltering. It was order, carefully maintained. The main steps of the building came closer. The heavy front doors, wide and tall, loomed ahead. Several police officers had already stationed themselves at the entrance, their stances firm. When the students saw the doors, their pace quickened faintly despite their fatigue. Relief drew them forward. Kirishima muttered softly, his tired grin faint. Man! I've never been so pumped just to walk through a doorway. Ojiro's lips curved faintly as his tail swayed behind him. Feels like once we're in, nothing else can touch us. Yes, I said softly, my tone warm. Because those doors mark the boundary between chaos and safety. Cross them, and the weight will lessen further. They looked at me, their faint smiles steadying, their steps firmer. At the steps, Vlad King lifted a hand, pausing the group briefly. His deep voice carried clear command. Single file. Stay calm. Move directly inside. Teachers and police are securing every hall. The students obeyed, forming a line with quiet order. Their exhaustion made them slow, but their relief kept them steady. One by one, they crossed the threshold. The sound of their footsteps echoed softly against the polished floor of the entry hall. The light inside was warm, steady, untouched by battle. And with each step into the familiar space, the tension left them more and more. Midoriya's eyes widened slightly as he looked around the hall. It feels so different now. Just being inside. I placed a hand gently on his shoulder, my smile calm. Because here, danger cannot reach you. Hold on to that feeling. It is the proof that you endured long enough to return to it. His breath steadied, his lips curving faintly. You're right. I'll remember this. Yes, I said warmly. You should. Tsuyu croaked softly, her voice quiet. Kuro. It feels lighter in here. Because safety always does, I said gently. Her gaze softened, her small nod clear. Kuro. The students continued deeper into the main building, guided by their teachers. The halls stretched wide, the light steady, the familiar scent of their academy carrying reassurance. Eureka whispered softly, supporting Jiro still. It feels like we can finally breathe again. Yaoyorozu exhaled slowly, her voice calm. Yes. We're home. Kaminari stretched his arm weakly, sighing. Never thought I'd be happy to see a boring hallway. I smiled faintly, my voice steady. Because now it means more. It is not boring, it is safe. They looked at me, their lips curving faintly despite their fatigue. The teachers began to guide the students toward a designated area within the building, one of the larger common spaces near the classrooms. Police officers remained stationed at the doors and intersections, ensuring every path was secured. Principal Nizu walked briskly near the front, his cheerful voice carrying clearly. Almost there, students. Once inside, you'll be able to sit, rest, and let yourselves recover properly. His small form radiated certainty, his words easing the class further. The students followed, their steps slow but sure, their bond holding them together. And at last, we reached the designated room. The doors opened wide. Inside, desks and chairs had been arranged to accommodate the entire class. Teachers and aides stood ready to assist, water and supplies prepared along the side. The students filed in slowly, each step lighter than the last. They took their seats one by one, some collapsing with relief, others lowering themselves carefully. The weight of survival settled into them now, not as fear, but as calm. I smiled faintly as I took my own seat among them, my voice soft. You see? You have returned. That is all that matters. Let the safety of these walls remind you that you endured. Their expressions eased further, faint smiles curving tired lips. Midoriya exhaled softly. We really made it back. Yes, I said warmly. And because you endured, you are here together. Tsuyu croaked softly, her wide eyes steady. Kuro. We're safe. Exactly, I said gently. Safe. And so, Class 1A returned to the main campus. The halls of UA embraced them once more, the weight of battle behind them, the comfort of safety before them. The first trial of their journey had ended. And they were still together. Chapter 41, in the shelter of voices. The classroom was quiet at first. The students had filed in slowly, exhaustion weighing heavily on every step, every movement. Chairs scraped softly against the floor as they took their seats, some sitting with care, others collapsing with relief. The air inside was warm, steady, untouched by the chaos of the USJ. The familiar walls, the neatly arranged desks, the wide windows showing the peaceful campus outside, all of it carried a comfort the students had not realized they had missed until now. For a long moment, there was only silence. The battle had ended. They were safe. But the weight of what had happened still clung to them. Midoriya sat heavily at his desk, his hands trembling faintly against the wood. His eyes, wide and unfocused, stared at nothing in particular. His lips parted, then closed again, words caught in his throat. Beside him, Tsuyu folded her hands together on her desk, her wide eyes blinking slowly. Her voice was low, steady despite her exhaustion. Kuro. It feels strange, sitting here after all that. I inclined my head toward her, my smile calm. Because survival always changes what was once ordinary. But that is not a burden, it is proof that you endured. Her gaze softened slightly, her nod small. Kuro. That makes sense. Midoriya's eyes shifted faintly toward me, his voice barely audible. It feels unreal. Like, we shouldn't be sitting here so normally after something like that. I placed a hand gently on his shoulder, my tone warm and steady. And yet you are. That is the strength of this place, it shelters you so you may remember that safety always returns after hardship. Accept that peace. It is what you fought to earn. His breath steadied, his shoulders lowering slightly. You're right. I'll try to hold on to that. Yes, I said softly. 2. Across the room, Eureka leaned against her desk, her eyes blinking rapidly. I thought we weren't going to make it out. Jiro, seated beside her, looked down at her hands, her expression tense. Same. When that warp villain appeared with so many others, it felt like there was no way. Kaminari rubbed at his head, his voice low. I didn't even know what to do. My quirk was useless against some of them. I thought I was done for. Yaoyorozu's lips pressed tightly together, her brows furrowed. It felt hopeless for a moment. But then we worked together. We didn't just give up. I turned my gaze toward them, my smile faint but reassuring. Yes. That is what carried you through. You trusted one another, and in doing so, you created strength greater than any quirk alone could provide. That is why you are here now. Eureka blinked quickly, her lips parting slightly. When you put it like that, it feels different. Like, we really did something. You did, I said gently. You survived. That is no small thing. Kirishima leaned forward on his desk, his grin tired but present. Man, I'm just glad we all made it back. That's the most manly thing we could have done, stick it out together. Sato nodded beside him, his arms crossed. Yet, if we hadn't watched each other's backs, who knows what would have happened. Shoji's many arms folded carefully, his calm voice steady. That's what mattered most. None of us let anyone else fall. Tokoyama's gaze lowered, dark shadow curling faintly around him. Even in darkness, we held on. I inclined my head toward them, my voice warm. And that bond will only grow stronger now. Because you have shared something no other class has. That unity will be your greatest shield in the future. Kirishima's grin widened faintly despite his fatigue. Yeah, unity. That's what it's all about. The voices grew slowly, one after another, the quiet turning into gentle conversation. The class, still weary, began to reflect aloud, their words carrying weight but also comfort. Mina's voice cracked as he slumped forward on his desk. I thought I was gonna die out there. Like, seriously. I don't think I've ever been so scared. Shoji's calm tone followed quickly, steady and reassuring. But you didn't. And that matters. Mineta blinked rapidly, his lips trembling, before he slumped further, muttering softly. Yeah. I guess it does. I smiled faintly at him, my tone calm. It matters greatly. Never diminish what you accomplished simply because fear was present. Fear is natural. Survival is strength. He looked at me, his wide eyes blinking, then slowly nodded. Thanks. The classroom grew steadier as more voices joined. Each student gave their thoughts, some short, some longer, each carrying the truth of what they had faced. Ojiro's voice was quiet as his tail flicked lightly. It felt wrong, being dragged into something like that when we're still learning. But, we held on. Ida, seated upright despite his exhaustion, adjusted his glasses firmly. It was dangerous, yes. But I believe we acted as best we could. We upheld our responsibility as students of UA, even when tested beyond reason. His words, though stiff, carried pride. I smiled faintly in his direction. And you did well, Ida. Your composure guided others when they faltered. That is no small gift. His back straightened further, his nod firm. Thank you. I will continue to strive to do so. As the class spoke, the teachers remained near the door, giving them the space to voice their feelings. Recovery girl stood with her hands folded behind her back, her sharp gaze watching closely. Ectoplasm remained steady, his presence silent but solid. Vlad King's arms crossed firmly, his expression proud despite his sternness. They let the students speak freely, understanding that reflection was part of healing. Midoriya leaned forward slightly on his desk, his eyes lowering. I just kept thinking about what would have happened if All Might hadn't been there. I shook my head faintly, my voice calm but firm. Do not dwell on what-ifs. Think instead of what did happen. All Might was there. He prevailed. And you endured until safety arrived. That is the truth, and it is enough. His breath caught, then steadied. Slowly, he nodded. You're right. It is enough. Tsuyu's voice followed softly, steady as always. Kuro. We should be proud. Even if we were scared, we're still here. Yes, I said warmly. And pride in survival is the strongest pride of all. Her lips curved faintly at my words. The voices began to overlap now, small clusters forming as students exchanged thoughts. Some laughed weakly at shared memories of close calls, others sighed heavily as they admitted their fears. But the overall tone was steady, calm, even proud. They had faced something terrible. And now, together, they could speak of it. And in speaking, the weight lifted. I leaned back slightly in my chair, my smile faint as I watched them. My role was simple now, to guide their tone gently, to keep their reflection steady. So when a silence fell, I let my voice carry softly across the room. Remember this day well. Remember not the fear, but the bond it created. You have seen danger, and you have endured. That truth will carry you further than any quirk. Trust in it, and in each other. That is how you will grow. The class looked toward me quietly, their expressions softening. Kirishima's grin widened faintly. Yeah, he's right. We've got this. Uraraka's lips curved in a small smile. Together. Midoriya's breath steadied fully now, his nod firm. Together. Tsuyu croaked softly, her voice clear. Kuro. Together. And the class, tired but safe, let that truth settle among them. They had survived. They had endured. And now, in the quiet of their classroom, they reflected together stronger for what they had faced. Chapter 42, Questions at the Door. The voices of my classmates had grown steady, their reflections on the battle carrying through the room in low, tired tones. Each of them had spoken, some more than others, but all had shared their part. The weight had lessened. Relief and unity replaced the silence that had gripped them when we first sat down. And then, the sound of footsteps outside the classroom doors drew all voices to quiet. The steps were firm, deliberate, carrying authority. The door opened. Several police officers entered, their uniforms neat, their presence sharp. At their head was a tall officer with a commanding posture, his gaze steady as he swept across the room. The students sat straighter unconsciously, their eyes widening faintly. But the officers did not look toward us. Instead, their attention turned immediately to the teachers waiting at the front. Vlad King. Ectoplasm. Recovery girl. The officer's voice was calm but firm. We need your accounts immediately. What happened at the USJ must be understood in detail. Vlad King nodded sharply, his deep voice steady. Of course. The students are stable. We can give our full reports. Ectoplasm inclined his head, his multiple eyes narrowing. We'll cooperate fully. Recovery girl's frown deepened as she crossed her arms. Ask what you must, but don't take too long. These children need rest. The officer's gaze softened slightly at her words. Understood. The teachers gathered with the police near the front of the room, their voices lowering, but not enough to be unheard. The students, though told nothing directly, listened. Midoriya leaned forward slightly in his seat, his brows furrowed faintly. They're talking about what happened. I placed a calm hand on his shoulder, my smile faint but reassuring. Yes. But let it not burden you. This is their duty, not yours. Trust them to handle it. He looked at me, his lips parting, then slowly nodded. I'll try. Yes, I said warmly. Do. Tsuyu croaked softly at my other side, her wide eyes fixed on the teachers. Kuro. They sound serious. Like, something went really wrong. I inclined my head toward her, my tone even. Because it did. But remember, it is not your weight to carry. Trust that they will uncover what they must. Her gaze lowered slightly, her nod slow but certain. Kuro. You're right. The officers began their questions clearly, their tone precise. First, how did the villains infiltrate? UA is a secure facility. Its defenses are layered, its gates guarded. What breach allowed this? Vlad King's deep voice answered firmly. They used warp quirk capabilities. Their leader deployed a creature black mist that could create portals. It bypassed every physical barrier. The officer frowned, his pen scratching quickly against his notepad. So a direct quirk-based intrusion. Not a failure of security measures. Ectoplasm's voice followed, calm and sharp. Correct. No barrier could have stopped it. It was a matter of quirk capability, not negligence. The students exchanged quiet glances, their unease faint. Yaeorozu's voice whispered low, her brows furrowed. If they can bypass everything like that, then no place is safe. I turned toward her, my smile gentle. Do not think of it that way. The truth is simpler, what happened today was an exception, not the rule. And now that they have seen it, your teachers will adapt. Trust them to do so. Her lips parted, then closed. Slowly, she exhaled, her gaze steadying. You're right. They'll prepare for it now. Exactly, I said softly. That is why you must rest, while they build the answers. The police continued. Second, what was their target? Were they after the students, or All Might? Vlad King's voice rumbled low. Their words made it clear. They came for All Might. The students were caught in the crossfire. The officer's brows furrowed deeper. To kill the symbol of peace. Recovery Girl's sharp voice cut in. Fools! As if they could. The officer inclined his head respectfully. Perhaps not today. But they will try again. The words carried weight. The students shifted in their seats, glances moving toward one another nervously. Eureka whispered softly to Jiro. They were after All Might, not us. Jiro's lips pressed together tightly. But we were still there. If he hadn't come. I leaned slightly toward them, my smile steady. And yet he did. Do not waste thought on what-ifs. Reality is enough. You survived, and he prevailed. That is the only truth worth holding. Their eyes met mine quietly, their expressions easing faintly. You're right, Eureka said softly. That's all that matters now. The questions continued. Third, what about casualties? Were any students gravely injured? Recovery Girl's frown deepened. They suffered bruises, exhaustion, some moderate injuries. But none fatal, none lasting. They endured. The officer wrote quickly, his gaze flicking toward us briefly. His eyes softened faintly before returning to his notes. That is fortunate. The students exchanged small sighs of relief, the truth settling into them once more. Kirishima muttered softly, his grin tired but steady. Hat. We all came back in one piece. Sato nodded, his voice calm. Yet. That's the best part. I smiled faintly toward them, my tone warm. Yes. And that truth will always matter most. The police pressed further. Do you believe this was an isolated attempt, or the beginning of a larger threat? Ectoplasm's tone was sharp. Difficult to say. Their leader was calculating. Their numbers were coordinated. This was not random. Vlad King's deep voice followed. But we'll be ready if they try again. The officer nodded grimly, writing quickly. The students shifted uneasily, their eyes lowering. I let my voice carry softly across the room. Do not let fear of tomorrow steal your calm today. Trust in the strength around you. That is what will carry you forward. Their shoulders eased, the unease settling into quiet trust. The questioning went on, precise and thorough. The teachers answered each part clearly, their tones steady, their presence unshaken. The police officers recorded everything carefully, their focus sharp. The students listened quietly, but with each moment, my words guided their thoughts back toward calm, away from fear. Because that was my role here, to keep them steady, to let them rest in trust. At last, the lead officer closed his notepad, his voice clear. Thank you for your cooperation. This information will assist in securing UA moving forward. Vlad King nodded firmly. Do what you must. We'll continue to guard them. Ectoplasm inclined his head. Our duty remains clear. Recovery Girl huffed, her frown deep. Now, let them rest. The officer inclined his head once more. Of course. With that, the police stepped back, their presence still firm but their questions concluded. The students exhaled softly as the room eased once again. The questioning had ended. Midoriya leaned back faintly in his seat, his voice quiet. They really are already working to make sure this doesn't happen again. I smiled warmly at him. Yes. And that is why you can rest easy. Trust in their work, and let it give you peace. His nod was firm, his breath steady. I will. Tsuyu croaked softly, her wide eyes steady. Kuro. We should just, let them handle it now. Yes, I said gently. Because that is what leaders are for. Let them carry the burden, while you recover your strength. Her small nod was clear. Kuro. The classroom grew quiet again, the tension lifted further. The students had overheard fragments of danger, of uncertainty. But they had also seen their teachers answer with composure, and the police act with precision. And so, they could rest together. Safe. Chapter 43, Healing Hands. The classroom had fallen quiet after the police departed. Their questions had been answered, the tension eased, and the weight of responsibility lifted back onto the shoulders of the adults. The students sat together in silence now, some leaning against their desks, others resting their heads on folded arms. The safety of the room was complete, and exhaustion tugged at each of them more strongly than before. It was then that Recovery Girl stepped forward. Her small form moved with brisk certainty, her cane tapping softly against the floor. Her sharp gaze swept across the rows of tired faces, her lips pressing into a firm line. Well then, she said, her voice cutting through the quiet. You may have convinced the police that you're all in one piece, but I know better. None of you are walking out of this room until I've looked you over myself. Several students straightened faintly, startled by her firm tone. Others groaned softly in protest. But her presence left no room for argument. First row, she ordered, pointing her cane. On your feet. Line up. Midoriya blinked quickly, his eyes wide. Are right now. Her gaze sharpened. Yes, right now. You think I can't see you shaking in that seat? Don't make me repeat myself. He shot up immediately, his movements stiff. Why yes ma'am. Tsuyu rose quietly beside him, her hands folded before her. Kuro. Understood. I stood as well, my smile calm. Of course, Recovery Girl. Will comply. Her eyes narrowed faintly at me, though her lips curved into the faintest of smirks. At least one of you has manners. The three of us stepped to the front of the class. Recovery Girl examined Midoriya first. She placed her small hand against his arm, her eyes narrowing as she scanned him with practiced care. Bruising along the forearm, strain in the shoulder, and those hands, boy, don't think I don't notice the tension there. You've been pushing your body far harder than you should. Midoriya's breath caught. Aye. Quiet, she said firmly. Excuses later. Hold still. She pressed her lips together, then leaned forward, placing a soft kiss on his arm. Her healing energy spread at once, glowing faintly. Midoriya winced, then exhaled as the strain began to ease. There, she said briskly. Better. Don't think this means you can keep destroying yourself without consequence, though. You're only making more work for me. Midoriya's eyes lowered, his voice quiet. Yes ma'am. Thank you. I stepped closer, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. My tone was warm, steady. Accept her care, Midoriya. It is what allows you to rise again tomorrow. His gaze lifted slightly, his nod slow but firm. You're right. I'll remember that. Recovery Girl turned to Tsuyu next. Her sharp eyes softened faintly at the sight of the frog-like girl's calm composure. You're steadier than most, she said, her tone brisk. But don't think I can't see the bruises along your legs. You've been pushing them hard. Sit. Tsuyu lowered herself obediently onto a nearby chair. Kuro. Thank you. Recovery girl bent slightly, examining her carefully. She hummed softly. Strain in the thigh muscles, swelling at the knee. You need proper rest, girl. Healing is one thing, but exhaustion won't vanish with a kiss. She leaned forward, pressing a kiss against Tsuyu's knee. The glow spread gently, the swelling easing at once. There, she said firmly. Now no more hopping about until I say so. Kuro, Tsuyu replied softly, her wide eyes blinking once. Understood. I inclined my head toward her, my smile faint. You see, Tsuyu? Her care ensures that your strength will not falter when it is needed again. Kuro, she answered, her lips curving faintly. Yes. Finally, recovery girl turned her gaze toward me. You, she said, her tone sharp. You've been playing calm, but don't think I can't see through it. Step forward. I offered her a polite smile, inclining my head. Of course. I'll trust your judgment fully. She studied me carefully, her small hands pressing against my arm, then my side. Her brows furrowed. Your body's steadier than I expected. Not as strained as the others. But you're not free of bruises either. You've hidden it well. Thank you for noticing, I said gently. I'll submit myself to your care. Her eyes narrowed faintly at my tone, but she leaned forward regardless, placing a kiss against my side. The faint ache there dissolved at once. There, she said briskly. Don't go thinking you're invincible just because you look calm. No student is beyond my care. I bowed my head lightly, my smile warm. Of course. And I thank you for your diligence. Her lips curved faintly despite herself before she turned back to the class. The inspection continued slowly, student by student. She moved next to Eureka, who resisted faintly. I am fine, really. Just a few scrapes. Scrapes heal wrong all the time, recovery girl snapped. Sit. Eureka obeyed immediately, lowering herself onto the chair. A kiss against her arm healed the scrapes she had downplayed, leaving her blinking quickly. Ah, thank you. I spoke softly from my seat, my smile gentle. It is not weakness to accept help, Eureka. It is wisdom. Her gaze met mine, her small smile returning. Right. Wisdom. Jiro followed next. She muttered faintly under her breath, her voice low. It's nothing serious. Recovery girl scowled. Nothing serious turns into something serious if ignored. Hold still. A quick kiss against her wrist eased the ache she had been hiding. Jiro blinked, her lips pressing together before she muttered softly. Thanks. I inclined my head toward her, my voice calm. You see? Accepting care now ensures you can play your part tomorrow without falter. Her gaze shifted faintly, but her nod was small and clear. One by one, each student received the same. Kirishima's laughter broke through the quiet when she scolded him for ignoring a deep bruise along his ribs. Guess I wasn't as tough as I thought. You'll be tougher when you learn to take care of yourself, recovery girl replied sharply. Sato lowered his head sheepishly when she revealed the swelling along his wrist. I didn't want to make a fuss. Fuss or not, it's my job. Let me do it, she said firmly. Shoji, quiet as ever, accepted her care without protest, his many arms steady as she worked. Tokoyama's composure remained firm, but he gave a respectful nod when she healed the strain at his shoulder. My thanks. Mineta whimpered dramatically at the sight of her approaching, but after a sharp scolding, he submitted, his bruises fading quickly. Kaminari's sheepish grin faltered when she revealed faint burns along his arm, hidden beneath his sleeve. "You need to stop overloading yourself," she muttered, healing them swiftly. Yaoyorozu tried to insist she had recovered fully already, but Recovery Girl cut her off with a sharp tap of her cane. "Healing is not the same as rest. Sit." And so, one after another, the entire class was inspected. Through it all, I spoke softly when needed, offering words of calm to each of them. I reminded them that accepting care was not weakness, but strength, that it allowed them to rise again with certainty. And slowly, their resistance faded. They accepted her care, their bodies eased, and their minds steadied further. At last, Recovery Girl stood back, her arms folded, her cane tapping lightly against the floor. "There. That's all of you. You're still tired, but you're no longer walking disasters. Rest properly tonight, or you'll answer to me." The students straightened faintly, their tired voices offering quiet thanks. I inclined my head toward her, my smile calm. "You've given them peace, Recovery Girl. They will remember this." She sniffed faintly, but her lips curved in the smallest of smiles. "Humph. As long as they actually listen." The class exhaled softly as one, the weight lifted further. They were healed, at least in body. And in that moment, within the safety of their classroom, the first true step toward recovery had been taken. Chapter 44, Nizu Speaks of Tomorrow. The air in the classroom was steadier now. Recovery Girl had finished her work, her sharp scolding silenced every protest, and every bruise or strain the students had tried to ignore had been seen to. The students sat a little straighter, their bodies lighter, though their exhaustion remained. For the first time since the chaos began, they could rest without pain weighing on them. The quiet stretched across the room. Some leaned against their desks, some folded their arms, some simply closed their eyes for a moment. Then, the soft sound of footsteps echoed from the hall. Light, precise, unhurried. The door opened. Principal Nizu entered, his small form composed as always, his white fur clean, his dark eyes sharp yet cheerful. He carried himself with certainty, a presence both gentle and commanding at once. The students sat up at once, their eyes turning toward him. "Good evening, students," Nizu said, his high voice cheerful yet calm. "I see you've all been tended to. Excellent work, Recovery Girl." Recovery Girl huffed softly, crossing her arms. "They'll be fine if they actually rest." Nizu's small head tilted in a nod. "I expected no less of your diligence." His gaze then turned fully to the class. He clasped his small paws neatly behind his back, his expression both warm and thoughtful. "You've been through something most students will never face," he began, his voice steady. "And you endured it." The students listened intently, their tired eyes fixed on him. "You were attacked by villains today," Nizu continued, his words calm but never harsh. "Danger entered the very heart of UA, and you found yourselves standing against it. You should never have had to. And yet, you did. And here you are." A hush lingered over the class. Eureka's lips parted faintly. "Principal Nizu." His eyes softened as he looked at her. "Yes, Eureka." Her voice was quiet, her words hesitant. We weren't strong enough on our own. If All Might hadn't come." Nizu raised one small paw gently. "And yet you endured until he arrived. That is no small feat, Eureka. Endurance is a kind of strength all its own." I inclined my head slightly, my smile faint. My voice followed softly, warm and reassuring. "And it is that endurance that carried you here now. You must not dismiss it." Her eyes blinked rapidly, her nod small but clear. "Right." Nizu's gaze swept across the class once more. "You are first years. Students still at the beginning of your journey. No one expected you to face a villain attack so soon. But what I see before me is proof of something remarkable. You supported one another. You worked as a class. And because of that, you returned here together. Kirishima straightened faintly, his grin tired but proud. Yet, we stuck it out. Sato nodded beside him. We did. Shoji's many arms folded carefully. No one was left behind. Nizu's small smile widened. Exactly. That is what makes you strong, even now. I let my voice follow softly, reinforcing his words. Strength is not measured only in victory, but in unity. And that is what you showed. Their eyes turned toward me briefly, the weight in their expressions easing further. Nizu's voice continued. The villains who came for you today were not ordinary criminals. They were organized, dangerous, and bold enough to challenge All Might himself. That is not something to be dismissed lightly. But remember this, you faced them, and you did not fall. Midoriya leaned forward slightly, his eyes wide. Principal Nizu, do you think they'll come back? The class looked toward him at once, their unease faint but clear. Nizu's gaze steadied, his voice calm but firm. They may try again. But if they do, they will not find us unprepared. Today was a shock. Tomorrow, it becomes a lesson. UA adapts. UA endures. The words carried certainty, grounding the room. I placed a hand lightly on Midoriya's shoulder, my smile steady. You see? That is the truth you can hold onto. Others will carry the burden of preparation. Your role is to grow, to trust, and to endure. Midoriya's breath steadied, his nod firm. Yes. You're right. Nizu clasped his paws behind his back once more. You are children. You are students. It is not your duty to protect the world yet, that is for your teachers, for the heroes who stand above you. Your duty is to learn, to grow, and to prepare. That is what UA will ensure you can continue to do. Yaoyorozu exhaled slowly, her hand pressing faintly against her chest. So, we can keep training. Keep moving forward. Nizu's small smile softened. Exactly. This attack will not halt your journey. If anything, it has shown us how important that journey truly is. I turned toward her, my tone warm. You see, Yaoyorozu? That truth is your strength. You will not falter. Her nod was calm, her expression steadier. Yes. The students relaxed further, their shoulders lowering as Nizu's words settled over them. Kaminari let out a faint sigh, his grin tired. Man, hearing it like that, it makes me feel like maybe we didn't do so bad after all. Jiro gave him a small sideways glance, though her lips curved faintly. You didn't. Tokoyama's gaze lowered, his voice low and steady. Darkness was there, but so was unity. Nizu inclined his head toward him. Yes. And unity will always shine through. I let my voice follow softly. That is what you must remember. The class nodded faintly, their unity reinforced once more. Nizu's eyes swept across them again. Your journey is only beginning. What happened today will not define you. It will strengthen you. And UA will be certain of that. Trust in us, trust in your teachers, and above all, trust in each other. The silence that followed was calm, not heavy. The students absorbed his words, their expressions softening. Tsuyu croaked softly, her voice quiet but firm. Kuro. Together. That's how we made it through. Nizu nodded. Yes. Together. I inclined my head toward her, my voice warm. And that truth will never leave you, Tsuyu. It will guide you forward. Her small nod was clear. Kuro. Nizu stepped back slightly, his small smile unwavering. That is all I wished to say tonight. Rest now. Tomorrow will come, and with it, the path forward. You've earned your rest. The students exhaled softly, relief settling into them more deeply. Midoriya whispered faintly. Thank you, Principal Nizu. Eureka added softly. Yes. Thank you. One by one, the rest echoed the same, their voices quiet but sincere. Nizu inclined his head politely. And thank you, students, for enduring. That is what makes you you. He turned, stepping toward the door. And as he left, the room remained calm, the silence peaceful rather than heavy. The students had been reassured. They could rest now. Together. Chapter 45, The Walk Back to Rest. The door closed behind Principal Nizu, and with it, a silence fell across the room. Not the heavy silence of fear, but one softened by certainty. His words lingered still, steady and clear. The students sat quietly, the exhaustion pulling heavier now that every reassurance had been given, every wound seen to. It was then that Vlad King stepped forward, his broad shoulders squared, his deep voice filling the air. All right, Class 1A, he said firmly. You've been through enough for one day. It's time to get you back to your dorms. Rest is the best thing you can do now. Ectoplasm gave a slow nod beside him, his many eyes glinting faintly. You've endured. Now you must recover. Recovery girl huffed from where she leaned on her cane. And you'd better not waste the healing I've just given you by wandering about or working yourselves too hard tonight. Straight to rest, understood? A tired chorus of yes, ma'am followed, the voices weary but sincere. I rose from my seat smoothly, offering a calm smile toward my classmates. Come. Let us not delay. The sooner we return, the sooner we may rest. One by one, the students began to stand. The classroom emptied slowly. Chairs scraped gently against the floor, books and bags were lifted, steps were taken with care. Some students leaned faintly on their desks before rising, gathering their strength for the short walk ahead. Midoriya held his notebook tightly against his chest, his eyes downcast but steadier than before. Eureka walked beside him, her arms folded, her lips curved faintly in a tired smile meant to reassure. Kirishima stretched his arms with a low groan, shaking off the weight in his muscles. Siro slapped him lightly on the back, his grin faint but supportive. We made it, hey. Hat. Yet, Kirishima replied, his grin tired but certain. Jiro slid her earphone jacks back into place, her eyes lowered but listening. Kaminari walked beside her, his grin weak, his head scratching awkwardly. Guess we all earned a good night's sleep, hey. Her lips curved faintly despite her fatigue. Yet. We did. Shoji moved carefully, his many arms steady as he gathered his things. Tokoyami followed behind him, dark shadow curling faintly but calm. Night approaches, Tokoyami muttered, his tone quiet but steady. Shoji inclined his head faintly. And with it, rest. Mineta stumbled slightly as he pulled his bag over his shoulder, his small voice whimpering faintly. Ugh, my legs still feel like jelly. Sato caught his arm before he fell. Careful. You'll make it back. Mineta gave a weak nod. Thanks. Yaoyorozu held her notebook against her chest, her steps slow but composed. Ida, at her side, adjusted his glasses with a firm nod. We must walk back with proper order. No one lags behind. We return as a class. I smiled faintly at his words, my voice calm. Yes. Together, as always. That is how we will walk forward. The class looked toward me briefly, their tired smiles faint but real. And so, together, we left the classroom. The hallways of UA were quiet at this hour. The sun outside had lowered further, casting long shadows across the windows. The school grounds beyond the glass were calm, the faint sound of the evening breeze the only motion. The contrast was striking. The chaos of the USJ, the noise of battle, the shouts of villains and heroes alike, all of it was far behind us now. Here, there was only stillness. Our footsteps echoed softly against the polished floors as we walked together. I moved toward the center of the group, my presence steady. Midoriya and Eureka walked just ahead of me, their shoulders faintly lowered. I placed a hand gently against Midoriya's back. "You've carried yourself well," I said softly, my tone warm. "Now let yourself rest. That too is strength." His breath steadied, his nod slow but certain. "Yes." Eureka glanced at me, her lips parting slightly. "You always know what to say." I smiled faintly. "It is not about words, Eureka. It is about reminding you of what you already know." Her cheeks warmed faintly, her nod quick. "Thank you." Behind us, Kaminari muttered faintly. "Man, it still feels weird. Like, walking back through the school after all that." Jiro gave him a small glance. "It does. But I think it feels better too. Like we're really safe now." Kaminari blinked, then gave a faint grin. "Yeah. That's true." I glanced back toward them, my tone calm. "Yes. Safety returns once more. Let yourselves accept it." Their shoulders eased faintly at my words, their expressions softening. The group moved steadily down the hall, step by step. Ida kept his posture firm at the side, his hand raised faintly as if keeping a silent formation. His voice was quiet, but certain. "We should not forget to thank our teachers again when we arrive. They carried us through as well." Yaoyorozu nodded faintly beside him. "Yes, gratitude is important. We wouldn't be here otherwise." I inclined my head toward them both. Gratitude is indeed the root of strength. It reminds us that we do not walk alone. Ida adjusted his glasses, his nod firm. "Well said." As we reached the stairwell, Mineta groaned faintly. "Ugh, stairs, of course." Kirishima grinned faintly, clapping him on the back. "Hat. Come on, little man. One step at a time." Shoji extended an arm toward him in silent support. I stepped closer, my voice gentle. "You are not alone, Mineta. Lean when you must. That too is part of walking forward." His wide eyes blinked, then softened faintly. "Okay." The descent was slow, careful, but steady. At last, the doors opened, and the cool air of evening greeted us. The sky above was painted with the fading glow of sunset, streaks of orange and red dimming into purple as the day gave way to night. The dorm buildings stood tall ahead, their lights glowing faintly in the dusk. The students paused briefly at the sight, the comfort of home within reach. Eureka exhaled softly. "We're really back." Midoriya nodded faintly beside her. "Yeah. We made it." I stepped forward, my smile warm. "Yes. And that is the strength you must remember, that no matter the hardship, you return together." The class turned their eyes toward me briefly, their expressions easing further. The teachers remained behind us, watching carefully, their presence steady. Vlad King's deep voice carried across the group. "Go on. Inside now. Rest." Ectoplasm's voice followed, firm. "You've done enough today." Recovery Girl huffed faintly, her cane tapping. "And don't forget what I said, straight to bed. No wandering." The students gave tired nods, their steps carrying them toward the dorm doors. Inside, the common area was quiet, the lights soft. The familiar space greeted them with warmth, untouched by the chaos of the day. Shoes were set aside, bags placed down, sighs of relief slipping out one after another. The couches, the tables, the familiar corners, it was all still here. And with it came peace. Kirishima slumped against the couch with a groan. Man! I don't think I've ever been so happy to see this place. Cyril laughed faintly, dropping beside him. Same here. Kaminari dropped heavily into a chair, his head falling back. Safe at last. Eureka sat softly on the couch, her arms folding loosely around herself. It feels good. Just being here. Midoriya lowered himself into a chair across from her, his breath steady. Yet. I stepped into the room with them, my smile faint but warm. This place is more than walls. It is the proof of your return. Let yourselves accept that comfort fully. The class nodded faintly, their tired expressions softening further. One by one, they began to rise again, heading toward their rooms. Yaoyorozu excused herself politely, her notebook still in hand. Ida followed, his steps firm even in fatigue. Tsuyu moved quietly toward her room, her soft kuro marking her farewell. Tokoyami bowed his head faintly before slipping away, dark shadow trailing behind. The rest followed, slowly, one by one. Each step carried them closer to rest. At last, the common area grew quieter. I remained for a moment, watching as the last of my classmates disappeared down the halls. Their doors closed softly, one after another. Peace settled fully. They were safe. They would rest. And tomorrow would come.